I whispered softly, sorry. But I didn't really care much. Just found it a bit confusing. Not understanding why Sophie had suddenly gripped my neck so tightly. Could it be that I'd done something in the past to upset her? And now she wanted a bit of revenge? I told her to rest here for a moment. Then I'd go get the doctor. After waiting a while, I noticed the nurse's office doctor still hadn't arrived. So I walked over to the desk. About 4 or 5 meters from the bed. As soon as I got close, the scene before me left me stunned. The nurse's office doctor was slumped over the desk, fast asleep. I hesitated for a moment, then gently knocked on the desk, calling out, "Doctor?" The person lying face down on the desk gave a soft grunt. Then slowly raised her head. Her expression was still drowsy, as if she hadn't fully woken up. This doctor looked about 25 years old, with looks I'd rate about an 83. Her large, lively eyes made her seem adorable. "What's the matter?" She rubbed her eyes, her head still not fully raised. My friend is injured," I replied, feeling a bit helpless. What else would someone come to the nurse's office for? Obviously to see a doctor. This doctor. Why would she ask such a silly question? And she actually dared to sleep during work hours. How strange. "Where? Take me to see." She finally raised her head, yawning while her eyes remained half closed. I said coldly, "On the bed." Right then, I really wanted to report her for such a careless work attitude. But just 1 second later, those drowsy eyes suddenly lit up. She looked at me, somewhat surprised, then blurted out, "Ethan?" Now it was my turn to be stunned. This was my first time coming to the nurse's office. And my first time meeting this doctor. How did she know my name? Seeing my face full of questions, she smiled mischievously. "You find it strange, don't you? Why I know your name?" I said nothing. She continued, "Come on. Ethan's famous throughout the whole school," the doctor said with an exaggerated air, then stood up from her chair, walking around me in a circle. Hand on her chin, she nodded approvingly. "In person, you're even more handsome than in the photos." On the confession wall, I thought to myself, this doctor must have some issues. Being stared at like this made me uncomfortable. After all, who wants to be constantly stared at by others? So I pointed toward the bed behind me. "Doctor, my friend twisted her ankle. Seems pretty bad. Could you take a look?" Only then did the doctor remember. Oh, I'll be right there." The doctor tapped her forehead lightly, as if scolding herself for daydreaming. Then she tried to regain a professional demeanor, and walked toward the bed. Before she'd taken more than a few steps, she suddenly turned back, smiling. "Oh, call me Dr. White." "Thanks, Ethan." Using my memories from my past life, I could be fairly certain this doctor hadn't been out of school very long. A few seconds later, I heard Dr. White exclaim in surprise, "Sophie?" Sophie, startled by the sudden call, nearly jumped off the bed, forcing herself to awkwardly greet back. Clearly she didn't know this person. Yet the doctor's eyes burned bright, as if they were old friends. Just then I stepped closer. Dr. White immediately looked at me with curious eyes, then looked back and forth between Sophie and me. Right after that, she winked playfully at Sophie. "Hey, little Sophie, did you finally succeed in pursuing Ethan?" The moment those words left her mouth, Sophie froze, her face turning bright red. What on earth? Does this person normally talk like this? The nurse's office suddenly fell completely silent. But Dr. White didn't notice the awkward atmosphere at all, continuing with a cheerful smile. "Actually, I totally ship you two." Hearing that, Sophie broke into a smile. Her face flushed pink, as she lowered her head slightly, occasionally looking up to steal glances at me. When she heard the doctor say she really liked this pairing, Sophie seemed even happier. She even found those words quite pleasant. Even the school doctor felt that she and I were a perfect match. If that was the case, then we truly should be together. I nearly choked on my own spit, coughing twice. From the moment Dr. White observed us back and forth, I'd felt something was off. Sure enough, right after that, she slapped her forehead. "Oh, I almost forgot. There's still the actual matter at hand." "Which foot is twisted? Let me see." Her voice became more serious, no longer playful like before. She focused intently on Sophie's left foot. Sophie gently extended her long, slender left leg. Inside, she was still a bit worried. Actually, her injury wasn't that serious. She'd only pretended to be hurt so I'd carry her. She was afraid the doctor would say, "It's nothing," and then I'd think she'd lied. That was the last thing she wanted. But because she wanted me to carry her, she hadn't thought much about the consequences. I had no idea about this. Even if I knew, I wouldn't blame her, because I understood how important I was in her heart. Even small things made her worry endlessly. Dr. White glanced at her long legs. A flash of admiration in her eyes, then said something that made both our hearts beat faster. "Ethan, take off your girlfriend's shoe so I can see the injury." I stood frozen, unable to react. Dr. White frowned and urged, "Why are you standing there spacing out? Hurry and take off her shoe. Didn't you say your girlfriend was seriously injured?" Only then did I snap out of it. Since when did I have a girlfriend? I glanced at Sophie, seeing she didn't object, so I slowly sat down. I carefully untied her shoelaces. Sophie's face was rosy red, her head lowered. Still dazed by those 3 words, girlfriend. Though she knew I wasn't the one who said them. Hearing someone else say it made her very happy. I tried untying the laces very slowly. When the shoe loosened, I looked up and asked, "I'm taking it off, okay?" She replied softly, almost in a whisper. She muttered inwardly, "Just take it off, why ask?" Just thinking about how my hands would soon touch her foot made her face flush even redder. I took a deep breath, keeping calm. Then gently removed the small white shoe from her foot. When my hand touched her delicate foot, my heart skipped a violent beat. I truly didn't know what Sophie was thinking inside. Even if I knew, I wouldn't blame her. It was just that she held me too deeply in her heart. So even the smallest thing made her think in the worst direction. Dr. White bent down to look at her long, slender legs. A hint of envy in her eyes. Then said something that made both our hearts beat faster. "Ethan, take off your girlfriend's shoe so I can see the injury." I stood frozen, not moving an inch. The doctor frowned, urging, "Why are you spacing out? Hurry and take off her shoe. Didn't you say your girlfriend was seriously injured?" I felt a flash of confusion. Since when did I have a girlfriend? I turned to look at her. Sophie didn't say anything, just nodded slightly. So I sat down, carefully, bending to untie her shoelaces. Her face bright red, head lowered. Still dazed by those 3 words, girlfriend. Though she knew I wasn't the one who said it. Hearing someone else say it made her feel very happy. I untied the laces very slowly. When the shoe loosened a bit, I looked up and asked, "I'm taking off your shoe, okay?" She answered softly, whispering inwardly, "Just take it off, why ask?" Thinking about how I was about to touch her foot made her face flush even more. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, then gently removed the small white shoe from her foot. When my hand touched that delicate foot, it was like an electric current running through my heart. I trembled slightly. Her foot was soft and warm, the thin white sock clinging lightly to her skin. That feeling made my heart race wildly. She didn't dare look at me either. Just lowered her head, gripping the hem of her shirt tightly. The air in the nurse's office seemed to thicken. I tried to keep my voice normal. "There, I'm done." After saying that, I placed the shoe to the side. Sophie just nodded lightly, her cheeks still flushed, not daring to look up. As for me, my heart kept pounding without stopping. The first sensation when I grasped Sophie's small foot was indescribable softness. After that, she sat on the bed, face red and head down in embarrassment. The very next second, Dr. White's voice rang out again. "Ethan, why are you spacing out? Take off her sock too." Every time Dr. White spoke, Sophie and I both flinched. If you looked closely, you could see the back of my ears had turned slightly red. As for Sophie, no need to mention it, her face was so red it looked like it might bleed. But she didn't mind one bit. She even silently thanked her inwardly. Because every word Dr. White said seemed to be pulling us closer together. Sometimes a little push like this wasn't so bad. I hesitated for a few seconds. Then took a deep breath and said softly, Dr. White, maybe you could take it off yourself? Hearing that, disappointment flashed through Sophie's eyes. Dr. White shot me a contemptuous look. You really have no backbone at all. You don't even dare take off your girlfriend's sock? Being looked at like that, I didn't know what to say, so I just stayed silent. After all, she wasn't really my girlfriend. If she wasn't my girlfriend yet and I already took off her sock without permission, then when she became my girlfriend, wouldn't that be crossing the line? Dr. White took Sophie's foot from my hand and swiftly removed the sock. The porcelain white foot was revealed. She lifted the foot to examine it for a moment, then turned to me seriously. Your girlfriend's ankle sprain is quite serious. You need to pay more attention to her these days. I saw Sophie tense up slightly, apparently quite worried herself. Only after hearing that did she breathe a sigh of relief. As for me, I still frowned slightly. What do you mean, doctor? What I mean is, she said, for the next few days, when she moves around, you should support her more. That'll help her recover faster. Otherwise, it could take a month and a half before she's fully healed. I nodded lightly. Sophie looked at the doctor with grateful eyes, knowing this woman was deliberately helping her. More accurately, playing matchmaker for the two of us. Dr. White placed her foot back on the bed, shot me another contemptuous look, then turned to open the medicine cabinet, taking out a spray bottle for reducing swelling and handing it to me. She said, spray a little morning, noon, and night. Thank you, doctor. Sophie smiled brightly as she accepted it. As we prepared to leave the room, Dr. White suddenly leaned close to her ear and whispered, your foot isn't that serious. Use the medicine I gave you for 2 days and you'll be fine. As for when you're completely healed, you decide that yourself. Sophie looked at her gratefully, then held onto my arm as we left the nurse's office. I still didn't understand the meaning of the doctor's last words. I only knew that as she walked beside me, her eyes sparkled brightly, as if hiding a small joy. I helped her walk out of the nurse's office. Behind us came the sound of Dr. White's long yawn. Today's accomplishment is complete. Back to sleep. Her voice faded gradually. Then she slumped back over the desk as if she'd never woken up. After leaving the nurse's office, I asked her, can you go down the stairs? Sophie looked at me, hesitating before answering. Probably I can. Actually, I knew she wasn't hurt badly enough that she couldn't walk. But just a moment later, she looked at me expectantly and said, of course I can, but if you'd carry me down, that'd be even better. I paused for a few seconds, then silently stepped down 1 step ahead. Then bent down, turning my head to look at her and saying softly, get on. Her eyes lit up brilliantly. Really? She let out a soft, joyful cry, then nimbly climbed onto my back, wrapping her arms tightly around my neck. As I stepped down each stair, the feeling of her soft body pressed against my back, combined with her gentle breath on my neck, made me feel a bit unnatural. We remained silent, only hearing footsteps mixed with heartbeats faster than usual. She asked softly, Ethan, where are we going now? To the badminton court? I tilted my head slightly, asking back, you still want to play badminton in this condition? She laughed softly, her face close to my shoulder. Is that okay? I was about to say, up to you, but the warm breath on my neck made me fall silent for a few seconds. Then I replied, not going to the badminton court, let's go back to class. Sophie cheerfully replied, fine, as long as you're there. Her voice rang out gently, sweet enough to make my heart tighten slightly. Right after that, I said softly, get down. The bright smile on her lips froze slightly. She thought I was angry, her eyes flashing with confusion. But I just turned my head back and said, we're on the 1st floor now. She looked around, only then realizing I'd carried her from the 3rd floor down to the 1st. Oh, she replied softly, a bit deflated. I bent down slightly to let her down. Her hand rested on my shoulder, leaving warmth that made my heart skip a beat. She muttered quietly, couldn't you carry me a bit longer? I pretended not to hear, just saying, let me help you walk to the classroom building. She didn't say anything, just nodded lightly. Her small arm gently raised for me to hold. Walk slowly, I reminded. Take small steps, or it'll hurt more. I know, she smiled softly. 3 minutes later, we reached the classroom building. I asked. Where do you sit? Though I knew exactly where her seat was, I still asked to seem natural. She pointed to a desk with a small stuffed cat on the corner. I nodded, helping her walk there. Pulling out the chair, then saying gently, "Sit down and rest a bit." She lightly patted the chair beside her. "What about you? Sit here with me." I looked at her. Her eyes lit up with a mischievous yet gentle gleam. I let out a soft breath, then sat down beside her. Sunlight from outside the window shone in, casting light on her face. I could clearly see my reflection in her bright eyes. In that moment, I realized my heart could no longer remain calm. Though she didn't say a word. She just tilted her head slightly, leaning on my shoulder. Her soft voice spoke up. "Ethan, you're really kind." I smiled faintly. "Don't make it sound like I'm some hero saving a damsel." She laughed too, her voice clear. "Well, I like thinking that way. What's wrong with it?" I didn't answer, just quietly looked out the window. The light reflected on her hair, making everything seem softer. I clenched my hand slightly. A warmth rising in my heart that was hard to describe. Just like that, only the sound of gentle wind through the door remained in the classroom. And the sound of my heart beating steadily in my chest. As if synchronized with the breathing of her sitting beside me. She lifted her head slightly, smiling at me gently. Then looked down at her feet, saying softly, "Look, my foot's no different from a lame duck now." I laughed, saying quietly, "I told you to walk slowly. You should have rested more." She pouted. "But if I rested, who would bring me back to class?" I glanced at her. Her eyes curved up, full of implication. I didn't answer, just shook my head helplessly. "You really can't stay still for 1 minute." She giggled, her laugh light as a passing breeze, making the atmosphere between us suddenly soften. "Sit down here." She patted the chair beside her. I still stood there, looking around the classroom. The classmates kept glancing at us while whispering. I frowned slightly, turning back to say softly, "Sit down, don't let others see you this exhausted." She obediently nodded, sitting down. Then looked up at me, her eyes sparkling brightly. "What about you? Aren't you going to sit?" I replied softly, "I can stand for a while. Then I won't feel at ease," she said, patting the chair again. "Sit down, I don't want to see you standing there forever." I sighed and sat down beside her. She tilted her head to look at me, her lips curving as she said softly, "See, in the end, you still listened to me." I smiled faintly. "Don't get too smug, this time is an exception." She propped her chin up, eyes narrowing slightly as if observing me carefully. "You know, whenever you're serious like that, you look even more handsome." I paused, forcing a smile. "What are you talking about?" "It's true," she smiled softly. Sunlight fell on her face, making her cheeks flush pink. Looking at her, my heart felt like someone was squeezing it gently. A warm feeling mixed with confusion. I looked away, saying softly, "Rest now, don't talk anymore." "Yes," she replied quietly. Then gently laid her head on the desk, her voice dreamlike as she whispered, "You're really gentle, Ethan." I stayed silent, a strange feeling rising in my heart. As if everything around us had vanished, leaving only her figure and my own breathing. I propped my hand on the desk, looking toward the window. Outside, the wind swayed the leaves gently, light filtering through, reflecting streaks of pale gold on her hair. I smiled faintly. I didn't know when I'd gotten used to having her beside me. This feeling was hard to describe. Light yet profound. Like a breeze carrying the scent of morning sun. Making me unable to bear leaving anymore. "No need. If there's nothing else, I'll head out first." "There is something." She blurted out immediately, without hesitation. I looked at her, my eyes full of doubt. She hesitated a moment, then made up a very forced-sounding excuse. "I'm so bored being alone in class." Hearing that, I glanced around. The classroom was full of people chatting. "She calls this bored?" I shrugged, saying casually, "If you're bored, read a book." Then I turned and left the classroom. Behind me, I heard the sound of stomping feet. She angrily watched my figure leave without hesitation, her eyes full of frustration. Then she looked down, gently rubbing her swollen ankle, letting out a soft huff. In the art studio, I used the last period to complete the assignment Mr. Lucas gave. Finally finished. With a few minutes of free time left, I stared at my phone for a moment, took a light breath, then texted her. Sophie, since your foot makes it hard to walk, do you need me to bring you food from the cafeteria? The message hadn't been sent long, when on the other side, she was asking Lily to keep watch while she pulled out her phone. Sneaking it open, preparing to type, planning to text me, let's eat lunch together. But as soon as she opened the chat window, my message had already appeared first. She looked at the line. Ethan, do you need me to? She replied very quickly. Yes, very much. Then she put down her phone, so excited she grabbed Lily's hand and shook it several times. A brilliant smile spreading across her face. Unable to hide her joy, Lily's head was full of question marks. It's just a lunch text. Does it need to be this exciting? She looked at Sophie. No, at little Sophie. Then shook her head and sighed. Is this what love does to you? Truly terrifying. If love makes you like this, I'd rather stay single my whole life. She's seriously lovesick. She smiled brightly, saying, he told me I don't need to go down to eat. Just wait in class, and he'll bring food right to me. At this point, her eyes shone like stars. And she added, plus, he was the one who offered first. Lily could only gape, never expecting Ethan, the coldest guy in school, would actually go buy food for someone else. Truly a miracle. She smirked. That arrogant guy finally opened his heart? Thinking about it, it made sense. Sophie was both beautiful and foolishly devoted in love. Even a stone could be warmed up. That Ethan's really something. I kept typing. Sophie, what do you want to eat? She replied immediately. I'll eat anything. Whatever you're having, I'll have too. Seeing that message, I frowned slightly with a smile. Then I tore off the drawing sheet and handed it to Mr. Lucas. Leaving the room a few minutes early, on the way to the cafeteria, I kept thinking, she says anything's fine, so what should I order? Though she said she wasn't picky. Everyone has different tastes. What if I picked the wrong thing and she didn't like it? This was really tricky. Finally, I decided not to overthink it. I ordered braised pork ribs, sweet and sour fish, and bitter melon with eggs. These dishes were all good for someone injured. Last time I ate with her, I noticed she chose light dishes to maintain her figure. So I specifically ordered vegetables for her. After all, eating too little meat would slow healing. The dismissal bell rang. I held the food and walked quickly toward the academic building. Meanwhile, in the classroom, Sophie was so moved her hands were trembling. Lily looked at her and sighed softly. My God, you're shaking just from hearing the bell? You don't understand, she replied, eyes shining. The bell means he's coming soon. Lily fell silent. Truly incurable. Love really does blind people. Since there was still class, the cafeteria was quite empty. Besides a few gym students who'd finished early, there was hardly anyone. I didn't have to wait. Quickly getting both meals. Walking along, I thought, I wonder if she'll like these dishes. A few minutes later, I left the cafeteria, carrying the lunchboxes upstairs. Students poured out of classrooms in droves. The stairwell nearly blocked. I had to stop on the first floor, waiting for the crowd to pass. It felt like being surrounded by the entire student body. Everyone who passed glanced at me. The girls especially. Every one of them whispered to their friends, accompanied by blushing, shy glances. 2 minutes later, the crowd thinned. Just as I was about to go up, someone came running down from above. It was Tyler. I frowned slightly, not knowing what he wanted this time. And my first thought was, don't cause trouble right now. I gripped the lunchboxes tighter, preparing to face him. But inside, I only thought of one thing. She, Sophie, was probably sitting in class, waiting for me to bring her food. The moment the dismissal bell rang, she was so excited her hands trembled. Lily glanced over, shaking her head helplessly. Sophie, I'm going to lunch now. Okay, sure, she replied, her voice slightly deflated. Remember to eat slowly. And after eating, take a walk around campus. It's good for digestion. Sophie said gently, a bright smile on her lips. Lily nearly choked, looking at her suspiciously. You're being awfully considerate. Not at all, she propped her chin up, feigning casualness. I'm just concerned about my friend. Lily narrowed her eyes. Concerned? Or trying to get me to leave so you can see someone? Sophie laughed softly, her laugh clear as a silver bell. She said cutely, "You're overthinking." Lily challenged, "Then why are you telling me to come back late?" Sophie smoothly replied, "I'm just worried you'll get too much sun, Tilda." Lily scoffed. "Oh, sure. Then why don't you tell me to rest in the library? There's air conditioning, cool and comfortable, could sit all afternoon." Sophie laughed cheerfully. "Ha ha, thanks for the tip. No need to thank me, just go, or there won't be any seats left," Sophie said while gently pushing her friend's shoulder. Acting very concerned, Lily looked at her, eyes narrowing. "You forgot to say one thing, didn't you?" Sophie asked curiously. "What?" Lily said mischievously, "The part about Ethan's coming soon, so hurry up and leave." Sophie froze for a moment. Her expression clearly caught off guard. Trying to appear calm, she protested. How did you know?" Lily teased, "I guessed. You don't have any secrets that get past me." Sophie said awkwardly, "Really, I'm just worried you'll eat late." Lily kept teasing, "Yeah, worried I'll eat late, that's why your heart's racing like crazy." Lily smirked and shook her head. "You're seriously head over heels." Then she slung her bag over her shoulder and left the classroom. Before leaving, she tossed back, "Ditching friends for romance, truly an incurable disease." When I just reached the academic building, students were pouring out like a flood. The stairwell was packed with people. I had to stand on the ground floor, waiting for the crowd to thin. Waves of students passed by, footsteps thundering. Looking at the crowd, I sighed. With this many people, when will I get up there? The descending students chattered away, while I stood still in one spot, feeling like a landmark in the sea of people. Everyone who passed looked at me, especially the female students. Some covered their mouths giggling. Others whispered in friends' ears, eyes full of curiosity and shyness. I tried to ignore them, eyes fixed on the stairs, waiting for the crowd to disperse. 2 minutes later, the hallway had cleared considerably. Just as I was about to step up, a figure came rushing down. It was Tyler. His eyes locked onto me. I frowned slightly, my heart sinking. And only one thought crossed my mind. This time, it's definitely not good news. Seems like the teacher held class late today. No one was more eager to eat than Tyler. With his personality, he'd usually fly straight to the cafeteria to claim a seat the moment class ended. Seeing him on the stairs only now meant he'd definitely been kept behind. Tyler quickly spotted me too. When he saw me carrying 2 lunchboxes, he immediately cried out emotionally, "Ethan, you knew the teacher kept us late. So you specially went to get food for me, didn't you? You're such a good bro. Not only handsome but thoughtful too. If anyone ever talks bad about you, I'll beat them up." "Let me see, what delicious food did you get today?" Tyler gushed while praising me, already reaching out to grab the lunchbox from my hands. I shifted to the side, avoiding him, looking at him and coldly saying one word, "Scram." Tyler froze, blinking in confusion. "Huh? You didn't bring it for me?" I was clearly holding 2 meals. One for me, and if the other wasn't for him, then who else could it be? Wait, that's not right. This seemed to be the first time I'd brought food back to class. Something was off about this. Tyler frowned, thinking for a few seconds. Then my eyes met his directly. "If I were you," I said, "I'd get down to the cafeteria fast. If you're late, there won't be any seats left." Tyler cried out, "You made me late," then hurriedly turned and ran like the wind toward the cafeteria. I watched his round figure, chuckling softly. In class 12 to 5 right now. Only Sophie remained. She kept checking herself in the small mirror on her desk, fixing her hair. Then looking out the window, eyes full of anticipation. 5 minutes later, when her patience was nearly exhausted, I finally appeared outside that window frame. "Ethan," she called softly, voice full of excitement. I raised my hand in a light wave, then carried the lunchboxes around to the back door of the classroom. Sophie sat near the back row, left side, against the wall. If we were in the same class, this position would be perfectly in front of or behind each other. "I brought you food." I placed the box on her desk. Sophie let out a soft cry of joy, hands clasped together in delight. She asked curiously, "What delicious food did you get?" I teased, "Open it and see." Sophie said shyly, being all mysterious again. She pouted, gently opening the lid. But with just one glance, her eyes froze. She asked me, "Where's your food?" Only 8 minutes had passed. No matter how fast I was, I couldn't have finished eating at the cafeteria and run back here. The cafeteria was nearly 800 meters from the classroom building. Running would take 5 or 6 minutes. How could I have finished eating in 2 or 3 minutes? Meeting her questioning gaze, I simply replied, "I left it in my classroom." She said unhappily, "Why didn't you bring it here to eat with me?" I paused slightly, not knowing how to answer. But she immediately played the victim. Eyes welling with tears, voice trembling. "I understand now. You don't want to eat with me, do you?" I quickly waved my hands. "That's not it, it's just, I'm not used to eating in this classroom. You're the only person I know here. Sitting at someone else's desk to eat feels weird." Hearing me say that, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. The thin mist in her eyes also cleared. Her clear gaze brightened even more. She said immediately, "So that's why. You can sit at my desk. I can go sit at Lily's desk." She tapped lightly on her desk, signaling. I froze slightly. Sitting at her desk? That should be fine. She motioned for me to sit and eat together. "Go get your food quickly. If you don't eat with me, then I won't eat either." Her voice was petulant, her pink lips pouting slightly. I truly didn't understand why she was so insistent. As if I was somehow cheating her out of something. Seeing me still standing there, she lowered her head, voice small as a mosquito's. "Do you hate me?" Looking at those dewy eyes, I finally sighed. "Fine, I'll go get it right now." Sophie said cheerfully, "Hurry back, I'll wait." When I returned to her class, Sophie had already moved to Lily's seat. "The spot's empty now, sit down quick." She smiled so brightly her cheeks flushed pink. I felt a bit shy, placing my lunchbox on the desk. And sitting beside her. Her desk was nothing like mine. On it was a panda pencil case, a cat-shaped pillow, and a small, neat storage pouch, everything organized. Probably because she just left. A faint rose scent still lingered. The moment I sat down, I noticed. There was a soft cushion on the chair. Not hard like the seat in my classroom. The feeling was surprisingly comfortable. But thinking about how I was sitting in her spot made my heart feel strangely numb. Just then, Sophie said happily, "Let me see what we have today." She excitedly opened the lid. Braised pork ribs, sweet and sour fish, bitter melon with eggs. Looking at the first two dishes with their beautiful golden brown color, her eyes lit up. "It looks so delicious." She turned to me, smiling brightly. "As long as you like it, that's all that matters." I replied softly, voice deliberately calm. Though inside I felt completely relieved. I'd been worried she wouldn't like the flavors. I asked, "You do like it, right?" She lowered her lashes, which trembled slightly. A strange feeling rose in my heart. She lowered her head again, saying softly, "As long as it's food you brought, I like everything." I said nothing, just smiled faintly. She was probably afraid of being too direct and making me uncomfortable. Seeing I hadn't opened my lunchbox yet, she tilted her head and asked, "What about you? What are you having?" I didn't answer, just silently opened the box. She froze. "Exactly the same as mine." She cried out, eyes sparkling. Then quickly unwrapped the paper packaging and handed me disposable chopsticks. "Here. Let's eat together." I accepted the chopsticks she offered, nodding my thanks. Inside, I felt a strange warmth. She watched me open my lunchbox, smiling until her eyes crinkled. I didn't forget to remind her, "Try it. See if you like the taste." I picked up a piece of sweet and sour fish, bringing it to my mouth. The flavor was rich, not too sour, not too sweet. The rice was still hot, mixing with the fish's aroma, surprisingly appetizing. It's really good," I replied simply, voice low and gentle. But just that was enough to make her smile uncontrollably. She said brightly, "That's great then." She also picked up a piece of braised pork. Then suddenly paused, glancing at me. She asked, "Want some?" I was slightly surprised, not yet answering, when she'd already placed that piece of meat straight into my lunchbox. she said, for you. I froze, about to say something. But she was already propping her chin up, smiling at me. She said, no need to be polite, consider it my treat. I stayed silent for a few seconds, then picked up another piece to give back to her. Then you should eat too. Sophie covered her mouth and laughed, her cheeks naturally flushing pink. In that moment, I suddenly found this scene incredibly gentle. The sun-filled room, her sitting across from me, eyes bright as springs. Each time I looked up, I met those clear eyes. My heart skipped a strange beat. She said, Ethan. I replied, yeah? She asked, can I ask you something? I answered casually, go ahead. She said, have you ever liked anyone? I paused slightly, chopsticks stopping midair. I asked doubtfully, what do you mean? She continued, I mean, really liked someone. Her voice was so soft it was barely audible to just the two of us. I tilted my head to look at her. In the fading afternoon light, her cheeks were rosy. Eyes full of anticipation. I stayed silent for a moment, then said softly, yes. Sophie asked curiously, what kind of person? I put down my chopsticks, smiling faintly. Looking straight at her as I answered, someone who always makes me feel at ease, just by seeing them. She bit her lip lightly, voice trembling. Is she still with you now? I looked straight into her eyes, saying softly, yes, right in front of me. She froze, both cheeks flushing bright red. Her hands holding the chopsticks trembled slightly, taking forever to squeeze out. Are you joking? I just smiled, not answering. In the classroom, sunlight filtered through the window, shining on her face, so beautiful my heart skipped. And in that moment, I knew I could no longer escape. I told her I had them right here, then pulled from the plastic bag containing the lunchbox a pair of disposable chopsticks. Sophie looked at me, her face suddenly stiffening. I asked questioningly, what's wrong? She took a deep breath, then withdrew the chopsticks she just offered. A forced smile appeared on her face. HMPH, nothing. Just suddenly remembered something funny. Then, no longer maintaining her ladylike demeanor, she scooped a large spoonful of rice and stuffed it in her mouth. Both cheeks puffing up round, as if trying to release some emotion. I wanted to say something but didn't know how to begin, only able to stare at her blankly. Seeing this, she said, stop staring at me. Eat your food before it gets cold. Sophie spoke while chewing, voice somewhat unclear. Oh, I replied softly. Then withdrew my gaze, using chopsticks to pick up a piece of bitter melon and put it in my mouth. Eating some more rice, slowly chewing and swallowing. Her change, I naturally noticed immediately. Could it be just because I didn't accept the chopsticks she offered? Actually, I didn't deliberately refuse her chopsticks. I just felt it wasn't necessary. After all, in the plastic bag with the lunchbox, there was only one pair of chopsticks. If she gave me hers, what would she use to eat? We couldn't keep trading back and forth. Like me using her chopsticks, then her using mine. Just thinking about it felt awkward. Probably from eating too fast. She choked, coughing several times. Seeing this, I quickly handed her the water cup from the desk, even opening the lid before passing it over. Sophie took it, drinking a large gulp, then seemed to suddenly realize something. Her fair face flushed slightly red, lowering her head, looking embarrassed. She must be thinking she'd lost face. I just watched silently, saying nothing more. The atmosphere suddenly became strangely quiet. Then I heard her say softly, give me the lid. I looked at the fair hand extended before me. Those slender, beautiful fingers. Hesitating for a few seconds, I finally placed the lid in her hand. She immediately pulled her hand back, screwing the lid tight. Throughout the entire process, she didn't look at me once. I watched her for a few seconds. Seeing she had no intention of saying anything more, I bent down to continue eating. Clearly, just moments ago she was talking and laughing. Yet in a flash, she'd fallen silent. I sighed inwardly. Girls' feelings really are hard to read. Only the two of us remained in the classroom. Outside the window, the sound of wind gently rustling through leaves. Everything was quiet. A few minutes later, Sophie finished a piece of fish, looked up at me, voice soft. Did I look really bad when I choked earlier? She seemed genuinely concerned about it. Voice trembling. I stopped, looked at her, then shook my head gently, saying nothing more, but the corner of my mouth unconsciously lifted. The image of her coughing softly replayed in my mind, and I blurted out, "Actually, it was kind of cute." "Huh? Cute?" Her worried eyes instantly transformed into surprise mixed with joy, even her voice rising considerably. Did I just compliment her on being cute? She laughed foolishly a few times. I suddenly felt a bit flustered. I must have misspoken. Now I understood. She'd been quiet because she was embarrassed about choking. Actually, she'd overthought it. She didn't look bad at all. On the contrary, she was rather adorable. I spoke while glancing at Sophie, then startled. Hey, what are you doing?" Sophie innocently replied, "I was planning to choke again for you to see." She spoke while picking up a huge spoonful of rice, mouth opening wide as if deliberately exaggerating. I jumped, quickly reaching out to stop her. But she just tilted her head and smiled brightly. "Didn't you say I looked cute when choking?" I let out a helpless breath. "You really are something." She giggled, putting the rice back in the box, covering her mouth as laughter burst out. She immediately asked me, "Why do you keep eating only bitter melon?" I replied indifferently, "Is that not allowed?" Sophie asked curiously, "Don't you find it bitter?" I teased, "Are you dumb? Bitter melon is supposed to be bitter." She pouted, saying nothing more. I just smiled faintly, but when I glanced at her radiant face, I felt my heart soften. This girl, truly made it impossible for me to look away. I looked at her, my heart still carrying a hint of amazement, not understanding how just one sentence could change the atmosphere between us so much. Sophie tilted her head to look at me, eyes curved like crescent moons, smiling softly. "Don't you like cute girls?" I paused for a few seconds, replying softly, "Of course I do." She continued asking, "So do I count as cute?" Her voice was gentle, sounding almost exploratory. I hesitated slightly, then nodded. "Yes." She smiled brilliantly, eyes lighting up like stars. "Then you can't say anything bad about me from now on." I smiled faintly. "How could I ever say anything bad about you?" Sophie said innocently, "Really?" I nodded affirmatively. "Yes, really." She giggled, then lowered her head to continue eating. I didn't know why, but just seeing that smile made my heart feel strangely light. The meal passed peacefully like this. Occasionally she'd look up and ask me trivial questions, while I could only answer briefly with simple words. But somehow she always smiled brightly, as if every answer I gave was something that made her happy. When I looked up, I saw her tilting her head, chin propped up, eyes sparkling with reflected sunlight. I turned away slightly, pretending to focus on my lunchbox. But inside I felt completely flustered. I'd never thought there'd be a day I'd sit eating with her like this. The feeling was so peaceful it was almost frightening. "Ethan." She called my name softly. "Yeah, I'm listening." She said, "Do you think?" She paused for a few seconds, eyes wavering slightly. "Like this, are we kind of like we're dating?" I instinctively looked up, catching that gaze, both gentle and fragile. I stayed silent for a few seconds, then replied, "I don't know, but it's not much different." She smiled, lowering her head to hide the light in her eyes. "That's enough." A short sentence, yet it made my heart race. I didn't know if she was joking or being sincere, but in that moment, I only felt. The sunlight outside the window suddenly became much warmer. She propped her chin up, smiling softly. "Hurry and eat. Your food's getting cold." I nodded lightly, picking up my chopsticks. But my mind was no longer on the food. Each time she smiled, I felt like my heart was being squeezed gently, uncomfortable, yet unable to pull away. She finished eating, taking a tissue to wipe her mouth, movements slow and gentle, then tilted her head and said, "Ethan, if I ever get sick, can I come find you?" I looked at her, saying softly, "What would you be sick with?" Sophie said mischievously, "Lovesickness, for instance." She said it with her mouth curving slightly. I froze for a few seconds. Couldn't help but laugh. I told Sophie, "Then that's a sickness I can't cure." She replied cheerfully, "That's okay. Just having you look at me helps." She smiled bright as sunshine. I fell silent, looking at that face, a feeling rising in my heart both sweet and frightening. I was afraid that I'd truly fallen for her. I felt my action just now might have been a bit much. So I picked up the largest piece of braised pork from my box and gently placed it in her lunchbox. Then said, "I'm still saving one piece for you." Sophie shyly refused. "No need, really not necessary." Sophie tried to pick up the piece of pork I'd just put in her box. But I didn't react at all. My lips even showed a faint smile. I immediately said, "I'm full, can't eat anymore." "That piece is for you." Seeing me so insistent, Sophie pretended to be regretful, sighing. "Such a shame. If I weren't so full, I definitely couldn't have saved that piece from you." She pretended to be sorry, and I just smiled faintly. 2 minutes later, Sophie had nearly cleared everything in her lunchbox, except for the bitter melon with eggs that remained. While eating, she even had a strange illusion that the piece of pork from my lunchbox tasted better than what was in hers. I looked at my own lunchbox. Still half the rice left uneaten. Sophie glanced at my lunchbox, then said softly, "Ethan, do you like bitter melon with eggs? I have plenty left." Afraid I'd refuse, she quickly added, "Don't worry. I haven't touched it with my chopsticks at all." Actually, I didn't particularly like that dish. But seeing the expectation in her eyes, I only hesitated for a moment, then used my chopsticks to take some bitter melon from her lunchbox and put it in my mouth. Her eyes immediately lit up, a smile blooming bright as flowers in the sun. I understood, for her, this moment was probably very important. In just a few seconds, she'd achieved 2 accomplishments probably no one else in school had. First, being the first person to eat food from my lunchbox. And second, being the first person whose lunchbox I'd taken food from. Her being stared at by her bright eyes made me uncomfortable. So I lowered my head, quickly finishing the rest of my rice. After cleaning up the lunchboxes, I discovered she was still sitting there, chin propped up, smiling at me. I said softly, "Give me your lunchbox, I'll throw it away." She replied softly, "Oh, okay." She hurriedly let go, closing the lid, carefully putting it in a plastic bag, even tying a little bow on top, then handing it to me. I paused slightly, looking at that small bow, not knowing what to say. Finally accepting it and taking both lunchboxes to throw in the trash. "If there's nothing else, I'll head back to class," I said, turning to leave. "Wait." She called me back, voice soft but firm. "Come here a moment. I have something to give you." "For me?" I was slightly suspicious but still walked closer. She bent down, rummaging through the plastic bin under her desk, pulling out a small notebook with a black and white checkered cover. Holding it out to me. "Here. This is for you." Seeing my confused expression, she smiled softly. My chemistry and geography teacher is the same person. The learning pace of both classes is almost identical. These are notes on the important content from the days you were out doing field sketching. I think they'll help you. I was somewhat surprised, taking the notebook and flipping through a few pages. Her handwriting was soft and flowing, looking very much like the personality of the writer. I skimmed quickly through several lines, then smiled faintly and said, "Thanks, I'll take good care of it." "No need to thank me," she smiled lightly. "My writing's a bit rough, try your best to read it." I replied cheerfully, "I'll read it carefully, really." I nodded, waving the notebook lightly. "If there's nothing else, I'm leaving." Just as I turned around, I heard her call again. "Wait." I stopped, turning my head. "Something else?" Thinking to myself, could there be something else to give me? And then her next words left me completely silent. "Can I look at you a little longer? Then you can go." I didn't know how to react. Just stood there silently for a few seconds, then turned and walked out. Afternoon sunlight flooded the hallway. I heard soft laughter behind me. Very light, yet it made my heart skip a beat. I didn't turn back, only knowing for certain she was smiling as she watched me leave. After that, I returned to class. In the classroom, half the students had their heads down sleeping. The rest either doing homework or playing on their phones. As soon as I walked in, I caught Victoria's gaze. She was playing on her phone, But the moment she looked up, her eyes locked onto me, brightening like headlights. She immediately dropped her phone on the desk, staring as if trying to see right through me. Then quickly noticed the notebook I was holding. Huh, that notebook looks familiar, it's the girly type. I glanced at her, saying nothing. Victoria started imagining all sorts of things on her own. No way. Ethan accepting a notebook from a girl? Must have just bought it. She reassured herself, even smiling smugly. I returned to my seat, not yet opening the notebook, when Victoria had already rushed over, plopping down beside me. Hey Ethan, Mr. Young went through grammar pretty fast today, didn't he? I can go over it again for you. I frowned. No need. My mood had been quite good just moments ago. But hearing that voice, I felt irritated again. I really didn't want anything to do with Victoria. Especially when thinking about the past life. How she'd secretly photographed me countless times. It just made my skin crawl. Seeing me so cold, the forced smile on her face suddenly stiffened. Then, what about math and physics? You missed a lot of classes while sketching, I could tutor you. I didn't answer. Just opened the notebook Sophie had given me. The writing was clean and neat. Each section of knowledge clearly noted. Especially in the difficult parts. She'd even added small, cute illustrations. I laughed softly. Just looking at them somehow made my heart feel strangely light. I realized all those drawings shared one thing in common. They were all small, adorable expressions. Just like her. All carried bright, cheerful expressions, as if smiling at me. There was a little cat stretching, a rabbit holding a carrot, even a steaming cup of milk. Each drawing, though simple, held my gaze. Every stroke carried her unique gentle feeling. I turned each page, feeling as if I could hear her voice softly ringing in my ear. Gentle, clear, warm enough to make my heart skip beats. I lightly traced my finger over the writing at the top of the page. She'd written in round, small script, "Keep going, Ethan." Simple, yet it left me stunned. I couldn't remember the last time someone had been this meticulous for my sake. These pages weren't just lessons. They seemed to contain the genuine care she had for me. I pressed my lips together slightly, feeling an indescribable emotion rising in my chest. Warmth, gratitude, and a bit of confusion. I read through the first few pages, then closed the notebook. Placing it on my desk, eyes unconsciously lingering on those words, "Keep going." It felt like a small flame was smoldering inside me. I didn't know why, but I wanted to keep this notebook for a very long time. Right then, Victoria's voice rang out beside me. "Ethan, who gave you that notebook?" I glanced at her, voice calm. "A classmate from my grade. A girl, right?" She smiled meaningfully. I didn't answer, just gently pushed the notebook into my desk drawer. Seeing my silence, Victoria grew more curious. "You're guarding it so carefully, must really value that person." I frowned slightly. Her voice carried that intrusive probing I hated most. "I said it already, don't meddle in my business." After saying that, I turned my head, no longer looking at her. The atmosphere immediately became awkward. She laughed forcedly, about to say something. But I'd already taken out my earbuds, putting them in, cutting off all sound from the outside world. Music played, and I leaned back in my chair, eyes gently closing. Sophie's smiling image appeared in my mind. That smile, pure, light as early autumn sunlight. I suddenly recalled what she'd said earlier. "Can I look at you a little longer?" At the time I'd only found it amusing. But thinking back now, I realized there was something very different. In her eyes, there was reluctance. And a bit of feeling she hadn't yet expressed. I sighed softly. It felt like an invisible thread was gradually wrapping around me. Not too tight, but impossible to remove either. I didn't hate it. I even felt a vague anticipation. Music flowed steadily through my ears. Outside the window, afternoon sun slanted down, shining on the desk, on that small black and white notebook lying quietly. As if it too were silently watching me. Watching this boy who still hadn't realized that into his bland life, a girl had gently stepped in, bringing the scent of flowers, laughter, and a warm heart. That I probably could never forget. And the most special detail was that on each drawing, she'd added a small hand giving a thumbs up, as if cheering me on. Those drawings were truly adorable and skillfully done. I smiled softly, not understanding why my face naturally relaxed. That smile came very naturally, impossible to hold back. Victoria sitting beside me saw I didn't bother paying her any attention, and instead stared intently at that notebook, with a smile on my face I'd never shown even to her. She was so angry her expression twisted. She was pretty too, with plenty of admirers. Yet I would only smile at a notebook, not even glancing at her. To her, this was nothing short of humiliation. She thought, could my face really be less attractive than a notebook? Thinking this, her expression grew uglier. Her eyes clearly showed jealous fury. But then, as if realizing something was off, she leaned over, trying to look toward the right side of my desk. Because to the right of where I sat was a fairly high stack of books, blocking most of her view, preventing her from seeing what was written in the notebook. She stood up irritably, pretending to walk past, then tried to lean over and peek inside. When she saw those small, delicate lines of writing, her expression immediately darkened. At first she thought I was smiling at a newly bought notebook. But now she understood clearly. This obviously wasn't new. The handwriting inside belonged to a girl. How annoying. Why would he accept another girl's notebook but not mine? She clenched her fist beneath the desk, face contorting with anger. Jealous emotion made her voice tremble. She suddenly asked me directly, "Whose notebook is that?" I'd been focused on looking at the drawings in the notebook. Looked up at her, calmly replying, "How is that any of your business?" My voice came out colder than usual without meaning to. She suddenly realized she'd just misspoken, quickly forcing a smile to explain. "I was just asking, Ethan, I cut her off. Get out." "Ethan, I'm sorry, I didn't mean." I said get out. This time my voice was harder, colder than steel. She looked at me for a few seconds, face flushing red, finally just huffing softly, then stomping away. I didn't bother looking up at her once. The room returned to quiet. I lowered my head, continuing to look at the notebook. Sophie's handwriting still lay there, like gentle light in the afternoon. I smiled faintly, continuing to read. Strange. Those lines of writing made my heart feel oddly light. I didn't understand why, but perhaps she was my only exception. That afternoon, the last class passed very quickly. By habit, I usually left class a bit early to avoid crowds. But today, I sat until the dismissal bell rang before standing up. Not heading to the main gate, but going straight toward class 12 to 5. I'd just stepped into the hallway when I spotted her familiar figure at the far end. Sunset light fell on her, drawing a faint, hazy glow around her. I suddenly paused, not knowing why my heart beat faster. She was smiling and saying something to her deskmate. That smile so gentle and pure the entire hallway seemed to brighten. I didn't move closer, just stood still, quietly watching. Sometimes, just this was enough. But then her gaze suddenly stopped, glancing briefly my way. In that instant, I nearly held my breath, not knowing if she'd truly seen me, or if it was just coincidence. She smiled softly, that smile gentle as late afternoon sun. I knew I'd lost. There was absolutely no way to escape this feeling anymore. When she turned to leave, that slightly tilted figure remained imprinted in my mind. I could only stand watching until her shadow disappeared behind the classroom building. In that moment, perhaps I understood. Feelings are when just seeing that person's smile makes your world a little brighter. And I, Ethan, was beginning to understand that. That afternoon class ended, and the classroom gradually grew noisy. Sounds of desks and chairs moving, laughter and chatter everywhere. I still sat in place, chin propped up, looking out the window. Sunset dyed the entire schoolyard golden. Light breezes blew past, carrying the scent of fresh grass and faint chalk dust. She, Sophie, was slowly gathering her books, while her close friend Lily stepped over to support her arm. A gentle voice rang out, "Sophie, be careful, let me help you home." She smiled, shaking her head lightly. "It's fine. Just a light ankle sprain, look." She was about to jump twice to prove she was okay. But Lily immediately grabbed her waist, glaring. "If you jump again, I'm telling Ethan." I was in the hallway and heard that, my heart trembling slightly. She lowered her head, laughing softly. Okay, I got it. But I knew she wouldn't really listen. Not long after, the two left the classroom. Her figure leaned slightly as she walked and talked. I watched, somehow feeling my heart lighten. Reaching the hallway, she glanced back toward the adjacent classroom building. Her gaze sweeping past where I stood. But perhaps she didn't see me. Or pretended not to. Her hand rested on the railing, the last rays of sun shining on her slender fingers. As if the entire afternoon had settled there. Lily mimicked her, also placing her hand on the railing. The two looked together toward the crimson sky. Then Lily tilted her head, saying with concern, "Sophie, don't go to dance class today. Stay home and rest." She nodded lightly. "Okay, I know." Her voice was soft, yet hearing it made my heart tremble. A breeze passed by. She lowered her head slightly, gaze stopping at the courtyard below the first floor. I stood there, still silently looking up. The distance wasn't far, but between us seemed to exist a hazy boundary. "Lily, are you in a hurry?" she asked her friend softly. Lily shook her head. "No, why?" "Then help me back to the classroom to sit for a bit." Lily looked slightly surprised. "Huh? What do you mean?" She didn't answer, just gently removed her friend's hand and turned to walk away. Her gait was slightly limping, yet still looked extraordinarily graceful. Lily stood stunned for a few seconds before understanding. She wanted me to pick her up. As soon as she ran to help, Sophie's figure had already disappeared at the top of the stairs. "Isn't your foot injured? Why are you walking so fast?" Her friend stood still, muttering, eyes falling to the hallway below. Then, as if suddenly understanding something, she bit her lip, punching the railing hard. "That damn annoying guy." I was already standing on the first floor. Afternoon wind gently swayed the leaves, golden sunlight slanting across the road. A familiar figure flickered behind a corner. She tilted her body slightly, revealing only half her face. I saw her first. My heart felt like someone squeezed it gently, a wave of emotion rising. I knew she was pretending to limp to get my attention. But somehow, I still found it truly adorable. I walked forward. The distance between us gradually narrowed. She took a deep breath. Then smiled brightly, both pained and beautiful. Steps slightly limping, but still trying to appear natural. Surroundings were quiet, only the sound of wind and my heartbeat. She approached, stopping just a few steps from me. "Ethan." That voice, light as wind, yet made my heart tremble. I looked up at her. Her eyes clear, reflecting the crimson sky. "Your foot still hasn't healed. Why are you walking alone?" "It's fine," she smiled softly. "I just wanted to take a little walk." I sighed. "You're always so stubborn." She looked at me, eyes curved. "So what are you going to do? Carry me again?" I froze slightly, then laughed helplessly. "If you keep teasing, I really will carry you." She giggled, laughter light as wind chimes. "Then, really carry me?" I stood silent for a few seconds, not knowing how to respond. But in the end, I bent down before her. "Get on." She looked slightly surprised, then pressed her lips together, gently leaning onto my back. That feeling was strangely familiar. Just like last time, same breath, same scent, same heartbeat. I could clearly hear her heart beating behind my back. She whispered, "Ethan." I replied, "Yeah?" She said, "Thank you." I smiled. "No need to be formal." I replied softly, then continued walking. She rested her head on my shoulder, voice soft as a passing breeze. "Before, I said I wanted you to carry me, didn't think it would really happen." I smiled. "You think I'm someone who just jokes around?" Sophie said, "No. But if there's a next time like this, that would be great." I said reproachfully, "You're hoping for a next time?" She laughed. "It's possible. Who knows the future?" I didn't answer. Just tightened my grip slightly, footsteps gradually slowing. Under the twilight, our two shadows stretched long on the red brick path. I could clearly hear my heartbeat merging with hers. Step by step, one by one. The distance between us seemed to close a bit more. Just a little, but enough to make me remember forever. I knew, from that moment on, I could never leave her again. "Don't look at him. Just pretend you don't see anything." I kept reminding myself. 10 seconds passed. I started to worry. Why hasn't he come closer yet? 5 more seconds. If Ethan still doesn't come over, I'll turn around and pretend I just noticed him. 1, 2, I silently counted in my head. My steps, already slow, became even slower. Like a snail. 5. I turned around, preparing to act surprised. Ethan, why are you here? But his voice rang out first beside my ear. Where's the friend who's always with you? Sophie replied, you mean Lily? She was tired. Asked to go home 2 periods ago. My face didn't flush, my heart didn't race. I calmly recited the lines I'd prepared when coming down the stairs. After speaking, I bent down slightly, using my hand to hold my ankle. Then took a sharp breath, pretending it hurt a lot. Ethan didn't suspect anything. He quickly bent down, asking worriedly, are you okay? Sophie shook her head, pretending to stand up firmly, as if I wasn't weak at all. See you tomorrow. Then I raised my hand in a goodbye gesture. My face still showed clear pain. Then I limped away. I've acted hurt this much. Surely Ethan won't have the heart to just leave me. Sophie muttered inwardly. Ethan watched Sophie's limping figure, hesitating only briefly before quickly following. Which neighborhood do you live in? When my voice rang out beside her ear, Sophie's heart seemed to drop a beat. Those few seconds of waiting felt truly endless. She'd been worried I wouldn't follow. She'd even thought up several backup scenarios, like pretending to fall, for instance. Sophie turned back, trying to act surprised. Ethan, why did you follow me? Then fell silent for a few seconds. Answering, Sunshine District. Hearing that, a map quickly formed in my head. Sunshine District was near the school. 2 bus stops away. I suggested, let me walk you home. She said shyly, would that be too much trouble? Sophie tried to seem reluctant. But if you looked closely, anyone would notice. The corners of her mouth were trembling from holding back a smile. She tried to restrain herself, even pinching her own thigh. Without that bit of pain, she would have burst out laughing. I said nothing, just gently supported her arm, using actions to answer. She lowered her head, lips curving slightly. Ethan, watch where you're going. There's such a big rock ahead, don't you see it? If I hadn't pulled you back, you would have bumped into it. I teased, your foot's injured, do you want to get hurt again? Sophie protested, it's all your fault. I was too busy looking at you. Really, it's not my fault. Ethan, why are you a guy but so handsome? I'm a girl and I'm jealous of you. We kept chatting about random things like this. I still spoke little, just quietly listening. Actually, I couldn't be blamed. When she said things like that, I didn't know how to respond. Like right now. The 2 of us sitting on the bench waiting for the bus. Sophie looked up at me standing beside her. Hey, why are those girls looking at me with such annoyed expressions? Do they think I'm your girlfriend? That question left me completely speechless. Sophie tilted her head to look at me again. Aren't you tired standing? Sit down and rest. Sophie gently tugged on my pant leg, then patted the spot beside her. Sit here, there's still plenty of room. I didn't respond, eyes looking far away instead. The bus is here, I said. I sighed softly, eyes dropping slightly. So fast? Couldn't it be a bit slower? She pouted and stood up. I ran over to support Sophie's arm. As she stepped onto the bus, I gently reminded her, be careful. My simple words warmed her heart. She immediately performed a little act, pretending to slip. Leaning toward me, I quickly caught her, but her face lightly touched my chest. That feeling made my heart race. I froze for a second, then quickly asked, are you okay? No, I'm fine, Sophie stammered, face bright red. Everything happened in a flash. Just 2 seconds later, we were on the bus. No one noticed, but inside, my heart was pounding so hard it felt like it would explode. She and I had just stepped onto the bus, immediately drawing everyone's attention, from students to older people. Everyone turned to look, but I maintained a calm demeanor, helping Sophie to the middle seats, saying softly, sit down. My voice calm. As for me, I stood beside her, hand gripping the overhead bar. She looked up at me from this angle, light shining on my angular cheekbones, making her heart skip. She called softly, Ethan. Hearing that, I bent down to look at Sophie, expression slightly questioning. She said, aren't you tired? Sit down and rest. She repeated what she'd said at the bus stop, even deliberately blinking once. Just 2 stops, 3 minutes and we're there, I replied, but she still shifted over to one side, leaving half the seat open. Sit here. She kept patting the empty space beside her. Then, as if suddenly remembering something, her face flushed slightly red. She avoided my gaze, not daring to look directly. Seeing this, I just stayed silent. My gaze seemed to carry invisible pressure, making Sophie's heart race wildly. She lowered her head, mumbling softly, "If you don't want to, then that's fine." I smiled faintly, so faint she almost didn't notice. The atmosphere between us suddenly became strange. She was like a small, trembling lamb, while I, exactly like a large wolf restraining itself in the twilight. Very quickly, the bus stopped at the Sunshine District stop. She immediately stood up, both flustered and nervous, as if needing to escape from where I was, fast. But even getting off the bus, she could still clearly hear my footsteps following behind, and her heart still refused to be calm. Walking along, she felt her face burning hot. Twilight shone through the bus windows, golden light like scorching flames. Sophie lowered her head slightly, pretending to look down at the steps, but actually to hide her tomato-red face. Getting off the bus, I still walked right behind her. I gently supported Sophie's arm once more. "Careful, there are steps." My low voice rang beside her ear. Just those simple words made her heart race wildly. Sophie hurriedly nodded, feeling like she no longer knew what to say. Off the bus, the road before Sunshine District was quiet. Only twilight and gentle wind blowing against our faces. She limped a few steps. I still didn't leave her side, maintaining just the right distance, not too close, not too far. I spoke first. "You really don't need me to walk you all the way up?" I looked at her, voice somewhat serious. Sophie froze slightly, then shook her head gently, trying to appear calm. "No need, I only twisted it lightly. I can go up by myself." I asked doubtfully, "Are you sure?" She affirmed, "Really sure, you can go. I'm almost there." She smiled, trying to hide the reluctance in her heart. I looked at her for a few seconds. Twilight reflected in my eyes, making them sparkle unusually. I didn't insist. "Okay, be careful going home," I said softly, then turned to leave. She stood there watching my retreating figure, feeling a strange emptiness inside. She kept watching until my shadow gradually faded in the twilight. Only then did she exhale softly. An unnamed warmth surged in her heart. She looked down at her feet, lightly kicking a small pebble on the road, mouth mumbling softly, "Ethan, you're so silly. But, you like me, don't you?" Wind blew past, making her hair flutter. The last rays of sun cast a warm golden glow on her. She turned to look back at the road I just walked, smiling softly, a smile gentle, sweet, and stirring. "Her foot's still injured. Doesn't she need help anymore?" A voice rang out beside Sophie's ear, making the girl who'd been about to flee the bus pause slightly. Her body remained in the position of having just stood up, preparing to take that first step. She can't let him find out. Sophie's foot injury really isn't serious anymore, Sophie warned herself inwardly. In just that brief moment, my hand had already supported her arm. I didn't seem to think about whether her foot was seriously injured or not, how severe it was. What I said was simply to remind Sophie not to move around carelessly. If she fell again, that would be real trouble. Chapter 66. I want so many firsts with you. "Ethan, can I ask you something?" "No," I refused immediately without thinking, because every time this girl named Sophie looked at me with such expectant eyes, nothing good ever happened. I always had the feeling she was setting a trap for me. Right after that, Sophie suddenly stopped. I turned back questioningly to look at her. "Why aren't you walking?" "I'm just asking one question. Just one. If you don't agree, I won't go anywhere." Sophie used a wheedling, pleading tone. I looked at her for 2 seconds, then withdrew my hand from her arm, turning to leave. Why does Sophie never follow logic? "Hey, don't go." She hurriedly grabbed the hand I'd just withdrawn from her arm, holding it tight. I'd just been about to step my left foot forward, but pulled it back. My eyes glanced down, looking at the fair hand gripping my wrist, hesitating for a moment. Her hand was soft, smooth, even carrying a slight coolness. That felt very comfortable. Seeing me staring at her hand, Sophie's face flushed bright red. Then she pulled her hand back, pouting slightly, voice carrying a hint of frustration. Fine, I won't ask anymore, okay? I stayed silent for a few seconds, then sighed helplessly. What do you want to ask? That pitiful expression of Sophie's stirred an indescribable guilt in my heart. As if not meeting her request made me the villain, the worst person imaginable. Hearing me say that, Sophie's eyes, clear as water, brightened instantly. Then, as if suddenly remembering something, her face showed a flash of confusion, anticipation, testing, mixed with a bit of shyness. I'm just saying, if, okay? What if Lily's busy after school every day? Would you walk me home every day? Until my foot's completely healed? There's no, what if. Who can predict these things? Just suppose it happens. On the way, I helped her walk into Sunshine District, finding Building 8, and stepping into the elevator together. The space inside the elevator wasn't large, but for the two of us, it seemed a bit empty. Yet somehow, both of us felt slightly suffocated, especially when breathing in each other's breath, and clearly feeling the softness from the hands holding each other. That feeling made the air even more tense. I pretended to be calm, looking straight ahead, face appearing unaffected, but my heavy breathing had already betrayed that I wasn't calm inside. As for Sophie, she lowered her head, occasionally stealing glances at my hand supporting her arm, then quickly looking away, face red with embarrassment. The elevator was frighteningly quiet, only the sound of two people breathing, and that atmosphere making both hearts beat irregularly. Actually, I found it a bit strange. Clearly along the way, Sophie had been like a curious child, asking about this and that. Yet the moment we stepped into the elevator, she fell completely silent, making me feel somewhat flustered. After more than 20 long seconds of waiting, the elevator door finally opened slowly. In that instant, both Sophie and I felt a wave of relief wash over us. As if the heavy stone pressing on our hearts suddenly vanished. I helped her step out of the elevator, then asked which apartment she lived in. 1503, Sophie's voice rang out clear and distinct, as if deliberately wanting me to remember. I didn't notice anything unusual, just based on the room number she mentioned. Helping her walk to apartment 1503, Sophie reached out her hand, pressing several times on the digital lock. I didn't know if it was accidental or deliberate, but when entering the password, she even read each number aloud in her sweet voice. I could only sigh inwardly. This girl really has no sense of caution at all. An outsider like me is standing right here. Yet she casually reads out her home's password without the slightest hesitation. Really don't know what to say. What's more, even the first 3 digits of the password felt somewhat familiar. After she finished entering the numbers, just a click sound. The door opened. Want to come in and sit for a bit? Sophie invited naturally. I looked at her delicate face for a few seconds, then took a light breath, gently shaking my head in refusal. I still have things to do. After saying that, I turned to leave. Sophie clasped her hands before her chest, watching my retreating figure, pouting slightly with displeasure. It's not like I'm going to eat him. What's he afraid of? So frustrating. I just simply, very simply wanted to invite him in to sit, that's all. I wasn't going to do anything. Besides, with just one man and one woman in the room, shouldn't the girl be the one worrying? Just then, the little cat April came running out from inside, lowering its small round head, running to Sophie's white shoes, rubbing against them a few times. Then, as if discovering something, its large gray-green eyes looked around the doorway. After searching for a while, not finding what it wanted to see, Sophie smiled softly, picking up the cat, stroking its head, then saying gently, "Kitty, you also smell Ethan's scent, don't you?" April let out a soft meow, struggling to escape from her arms to run find me. Sophie gently flicked her finger against its soft round head, saying petulantly, "You ungrateful little thing. I've raised you for half a year, you know. Yet Ethan only stood here for a moment. And you've already caught his scent and want to chase after him. Don't need me anymore? April seemed to understand her words. Immediately becoming obedient and quiet, even sticking out its tongue to lick her hand gently. Compared to the boy who'd once fed it when it was wandering the streets. Keeping a steady meal ticket with this new owner was just as important. As a clever cat who knew how to act cute, it understood very well how to choose. Now, not seeing the boy who'd once given it shelter and food. It should first please its current owner. Being good like this was better. Sophie smiled, satisfied with this sudden change, while also learning a small lesson. The first time is always the most unforgettable. Just like her cat April. Though she'd raised it for half a year, as close as could be. But just catching a whiff of Ethan's scent, it would rush to find him without hesitation. So she wanted to have with Ethan. So many firsts together. Sophie, regarding April's sudden change, still felt extremely satisfied, while also comprehending a small principle. The first time is always the most unforgettable. Just like her cat April. Though she'd raised it for half a year, very close to her. But just catching my scent, it would still rush to find me without hesitation. So she wanted to have with me so many firsts. Like the first kiss. If the first time was like this, she'd never forget me again. Sophie, a girl who always thought very clearly, smiled brilliantly, stroking April the cat. You little kitty, my white shoes have been worn all day. And you still dare rub against them? They're dirty. Let me give you a bath, okay? She laughed softly and gently. April reluctantly turned to look outside the door once more. Then obediently lay still in Sophie's palm. Being carried inside by her. Chapter 67. Mother's changing expression. At Harmony District, the moment I opened the door and stepped inside, I was immediately attacked by my mother's warm welcome. She handed me cotton slippers, while quickly taking the backpack from my shoulder. Extremely enthusiastic, the moment I finished changing shoes. Mom couldn't wait to push me toward the sofa, calling out, Ethan, you must be exhausted from studying all day. Lie down and rest a bit. Dinner's almost ready. Let me wash some grapes for you to eat first. I turned to look at Mom in surprise. Before, my mother was enthusiastic too. But never to this extent. Something feels off. I'd barely sat down on the sofa when Mom came from the kitchen, carrying a plate of pre-washed grapes, sitting right beside me. Then she picked out a large, round one, and held it close to my mouth, saying, Open up. My face stiffened. I reached out to take the grape she was offering, and said, I can feed myself, Mom. Mom seemed less than pleased with my action, looking at me for a few seconds full of resentment, then saying, Fine, fine, fine. Rejecting your mother? Go ahead and eat yourself then. Mom rather forcefully shoved the entire plate of grapes into my hands, clearly angry. You're all grown up now. And Mom's still feeding you. How strange. I muttered quietly. What did you say? Nothing, I said you look beautiful, Mom. HMPH, Mom didn't dwell on this small matter. Because she had something more important to ask. I watched Mom take a deep breath, then suddenly sit up straight, eyes full of expectation. Ethan, that tiramisu I made, did you give it to that Sophie girl yet? Hearing Mom ask that, I immediately understood why. She'd been acting so strange today. So she was waiting to ask about this. I answered casually. I ate it. Compared to my calmness, Mom's expression immediately stiffened in disbelief. You ate it? Mom gaped, thinking she'd heard wrong. Yes, I nodded in confirmation. After making sure, Mom's voice immediately rose several octaves, saying angrily, Why did you eat it? That was a cake I specially prepared for that girl. I already told you. She and I aren't the kind of relationship you think, Mom. Plus, I studied all day and was tired. When I went out, I was hungry. So I just ate that tiramisu. Mom was so angry she couldn't speak properly. This foolish son of mine. Normally he seems smart enough. But the moment it involves girls, he acts like an idiot. What left Mom most speechless was that her son, because he was hungry, ate the cake she'd prepared for that girl. That cake. I spent so much effort wrapping and decorating it. Doesn't your school have a cafeteria? If you're hungry, go buy something to eat there. If you'd told me earlier you liked tiramisu, I would have packed a whole bag full for you to take. Why did you have to ruin things at such an important moment? Mom, why are you taking my grapes away? The tiramisu I put my heart into making. You ate it all. So no more grapes for you. Mom, isn't that a bit much? It is much, very much, in fact. Mom nodded seriously twice, then began continuously popping grapes into her mouth, as if wanting to swallow her anger down with each one. I reached out to share the grapes with Mom. But the moment my hand touched the plate, Mom forcefully pushed it away. Don't you like tiramisu? There's more in the fridge. Don't fight me for grapes. Mom proudly hugged the plate of grapes to her chest. The corner of my mouth twitched. Mom still wouldn't even glance at me, continuing to vent her anger on the grapes, eating while muttering. Watching this scene, I was genuinely worried Mom would lose it completely. So I timidly said quietly, Mom, I still have homework to finish. I'm heading to my room. When dinner's ready, call me out to eat. Hearing that, Mom's anger, which had just calmed slightly, suddenly flared up again. She grabbed the plate of grapes and raised it to throw at me. But while her hand was still midair, she stopped, then angrily slammed it down on the sofa, glaring at me as I left. About half an hour later, the front door opened again. My father, James Jong, walked in. Seeing Mom sitting sulkily on the sofa, he quickly set his briefcase on the side cabinet, then rushed over. Who dared make my wife this angry? Who else but your son? Dad had just heard this. Surprised. Doesn't she always call him, our precious boy, our treasure? How did he suddenly become that useless kid? Did Ethan make you angry, honey? Yes. Sarah Chin nodded slightly, voice sullen. Dad immediately held Mom in his arms, patting her shoulder consolingly for a while, then stood up, rolling up his sleeves. I'll go teach him a lesson for you, honey. When he reached my room, Dad turned back and saw Mom had no intention of stopping him. Feeling a bit uncertain inside, he turned back and asked, You're not going to stop me? The moment he finished speaking, a pillow flew straight at his face. The soft pillow didn't hurt, so Dad caught the pillow that had just been thrown at him, then moved nimbly, running back toward Mom. Honey, he was about to wrap his arm around Mom's shoulder when he saw Mom turn away sulkily, clearly not wanting to talk. His hand hung midair, then withdrew. Then, as if thinking of something, he raised his hand to his forehead, groaning softly. Hearing the sound, Mom immediately turned around. Are you okay? Nothing, just got hit by the pillow. Hurts a bit. Did you throw it too hard? Sorry, it's okay. I don't blame you. It's my slow reflexes. Couldn't dodge in time. Where does it hurt? Let me rub it for you. You're so good to me, honey. At the dinner table, Mom sat across from me, eyes following my every move. The moment I raised my chopsticks, Mom would immediately snatch up that dish, putting it in her own bowl first. You're so good to me, honey. My father, James Jong, contentedly closed his eyes, enjoying the gentle feeling as Mom rubbed his forehead. It felt truly comfortable. The exhaustion from the entire day seemed to vanish. 10 minutes later, at the dinner table, Mom still wouldn't take her eyes off me. The moment I raised my chopsticks to take something, Mom would immediately snatch that dish and put it in her own bowl first. Then Mom would eat while acting like it tasted delicious, not forgetting to shoot me a challenging look. After being beaten to the food several times in a row, I turned to look at Dad, saying irritably, Dad, Mom's deliberately picking on me. Aren't you going to say anything? Hearing that, Dad's heart went cold. Son, are you trying to get me killed? He screamed inwardly. In this house, Mom is queen. Whatever she does is right. Dad said righteously. Dear, have some of this braised pork. Thank you, honey. Chapter 68. Give you one more chance. 6 o'clock the next morning. I yawned broadly, slipped on cotton slippers, and walked to the window. Yanking the curtains open, brilliant light flooded in, illuminating the dim room. Morning sunlight filled every corner, and the gentle, cool breeze made me feel refreshed. I closed my eyes, taking several deep breaths to savor the natural morning air. Then changed into my uniform and went to the bathroom to wash my face. "Ethan, you're up so early? Why not sleep a bit more?" My mother, Sarah Chin, poked her head out from the kitchen, watching me head into the bathroom, voice carrying a hint of affection. "I slept enough. I'm in great spirits. I'd just finished washing my face and sat down at the breakfast table. Mom thoughtfully brought over a plate of freshly fried sunny-side-up eggs and placed them before me. Try them. See if Mom's eggs taste good today." I used chopsticks to pick up a piece of egg, took a small bite, then savored it. Compared to Mom's stern face yesterday, today she'd returned to normal. "Well?" Mom propped her hand on the table, eyes full of expectation. "Yes." I deliberately drew out the word. Then, seeing Mom start to get anxious, I smiled and said, "Your cooking's really improved, Mom. This is the best egg I've ever had." The moment I finished speaking, Mom's face immediately bloomed with a smile like flowers. "If you like it, I'll make it for you every day from now on." After saying that, Mom ladled a bowl of vegetable and meat congee and placed it before me. "The congee I made today is also really good." I ate eggs while drinking congee. After finishing, I went to get my backpack from the sofa. Mom wasn't idle either, turning to the refrigerator. A few seconds later, I saw a delicate box identical to yesterday's. "I'm giving you one more chance." Mom held that box and walked over, holding it out before me, shooting me a warning glance. I only hesitated for a second, then accepted it. Looks like Mom still hasn't given up on this plan. If I'd known yesterday, I should have just lied and said I'd already given the tiramisu to Sophie. That way I probably wouldn't have been tortured all evening. Right after that, Mom's other hand, also extended. In her hand was another tiramisu. The only difference was, this one was in a simpler container. Just a regular plastic box. Before I could understand what was happening, Mom had stuffed the second cake into my other hand, then sternly warned, "Tonight, if you dare tell me you ate the cake I made for that girl again, don't blame me. If you want to eat one, eat this one." Just then, my phone on the table vibrated lightly. I glanced at the notification that appeared. The moment I saw the sender's name, my hand trembled slightly. I quickly composed myself, putting both cake boxes in my bag, then opened my phone to check the message. A message from Nathan, my friend. "Have you left for school yet?" Mom blinked curiously. "Who's texting you? Is it that Sophie girl?" Mom's face showed clear teasing. Mom, what are you thinking?" The message just asked when I'd get to school. "He's missing a geography assignment and wants to borrow mine to copy." I spoke smoothly, face unchanging, while quickly tapping the screen a few times, then stuffing my phone in my pocket. Every action flowed seamlessly and perfectly, without the slightest opening. Mom looked at me suspiciously for a few seconds, then sighed with regret. After that, she spoke in a lecturing tone. "Girls are usually shy. They don't dare text first. You need to be more proactive, you know? I'm going to be late for school. I'm leaving now." I slung my bag over my shoulder, fleeing the house like I was escaping. "Hey, are you even listening to me?" Slam. The door answered my mother. Looking at the closed door, Mom stomped her foot in frustration, then walked straight into the bedroom. Just opening the door, she sighed again. "This foolish boy is making me lose sleep with frustration." Sunshine District, bus stop. Sophie sat on the long bench, holding her phone, lightly tapping it against her palm, waiting for someone's message. When the phone dinged, she immediately opened it to look. "On my way." Her delicate face showed clear relief. Then she propped both hands on the bench, leaning back, swaying a few times happily, her legs straight and endlessly long. Too bad she was wearing uniform pants, hiding those fair legs. Otherwise, surely, anyone who looked would be dazzled. But the perfect curves showing through the thin fabric were still enough to captivate. Harmony District was about 5 bus stops from school. Sophie still held her phone, lightly tapping it against her palm, eyes distant and murmuring. Before long, the first bus had stopped before her. She looked up and glanced. not seeing the person she wanted to meet. She lowered her head, then continued waiting. Bus after bus. All stopped and left before her. Yet not one made her want to stand up. Several boys standing around the bus stop occasionally stole glances at her. Just because she was so beautiful, they couldn't look away. They even fantasized inwardly. If only I could ride the same bus as that girl. How lucky that would be. If I could sit next to her, even better. However, the buses they were waiting for came and went one by one. Yet that beautiful girl still sat there without moving. Finally, they had no choice but to board, looking back reluctantly with regret and bewilderment. About 5 minutes later, AK1 route bus stopped. Sophie trembled slightly, standing up from the bench, because she'd spotted me on the bus. And in just that instant, our eyes met. The smile on her lips blazed bright, like twilight mixed with rose fragrance. I stared at her for 2 seconds, then suddenly remembered her foot still hurt. I immediately rushed off the bus, intending to help her on, because the bus was already packed with seats. Before getting off, I deliberately left my backpack to save her a seat. Sophie, seeing me, was just as delighted. She nearly ran toward the bus, but when only steps from boarding, I quickly ran down from the bus, preparing to help her up, because on the bus at that time, all the seats were taken. Before getting off, I deliberately left my backpack behind to save her a seat. Sophie was very excited seeing me. She nearly ran toward the bus. But just as she approached the boarding step, right as I stepped off the bus, she immediately snapped back to awareness, hurriedly stopping her stride. Her delicate face showed a flash of panic. She limped slightly toward me. I didn't notice Sophie's unusual behavior, just reached out to support her arm, saying, "Let me help you onto the bus." The moment I got close to Sophie, I caught the scent of roses emanating from her, and now touching the smooth skin of her arm. My heart pounded beyond my control. Logically speaking, after so many contacts like this, I should have gradually gotten used to it. But it was completely the opposite. The more contact, the more I wanted to touch Sophie. And each touch brought a different sensation. One thing was certain. My heart was beating faster with each moment. "Thank you." Sophie smiled sweetly, letting me help her onto the bus. Inside, she breathed a quiet sigh of relief. Good thing I reacted in time. Otherwise I wouldn't be able to use the sprained ankle excuse to stay close to him anymore. The boys who'd skipped multiple buses hoping to ride with Sophie, now watching this impossibly beautiful girl being helped onto the bus by some strange guy, all felt utterly dejected. Should have just taken an earlier bus. Now look what happened. For the next few days, they'd all be living in extreme jealousy of that guy. I helped Sophie walk to my previous seat, then picked up my backpack, signaling for her to sit. Sophie didn't refuse, plopping down on the seat, looking up at me with a radiant smile. It could be said, this was the second time she'd ridden a bus during high school. The first time was yesterday when I'd walked her home. I knew Sophie was looking at me, but I didn't turn back. Just straightened slightly, hand gripping the handrail tightly, pretending to look coldly straight ahead, the corner of my mouth curving up slightly, carrying a smugness I couldn't hide. 3 minutes later, Sophie called my name softly. "What? Are we at school already? From now on when riding the bus, remember not to space out like that, or you might miss your stop." Can't help it. Who told the person sitting next to me to be you? Chapter 69. Sophie's Other Side. In front of Riverside High's gate, groups of students in uniforms streamed into school one after another. Some walked in groups, some walked alone, compared to friends still drowsy from waking early. Victoria's face radiated with the vibrant energy of youth. Her smile was sweet as morning sun. A new day, a new beginning. Yesterday's scene, when I coldly sent her away, had already been pushed from her mind. Instead, she was imagining that today would bring new progress between us. Just as she thought this, a familiar figure entered her field of vision. She looked carefully for a few seconds, then was 100% certain. The person ahead was me. Normally, seeing me, she should be happy. But beside me was another girl, and the two of us looked very close. What bothered her even more was that the girl's figure was even better than hers. Victoria's once radiant smile immediately vanished, eyes blazing, when she was about to run over and demand why I was being so intimate with another girl. It was like a bucket of cold water, dumped straight on her head, helping her snap back to clarity. Yesterday it was precisely because of jealous impulsiveness that I'd shown my displeasure with her. She couldn't make that same mistake again. Victoria took a deep breath, calming down, then quickly ran up before me, smiling sweetly in greeting. At the same time, she stole glances at the girl standing beside me. When she recognized it was Sophie, her eyes immediately flashed with wariness. If it were someone else, she could still confidently compete. But with Sophie, she wasn't sure at all. At Victoria's sudden appearance, I showed no sign of happiness, just coldly ignored her. As for Sophie, she had even less intention of giving her a good look. After all, any girl who had feelings for me was viewed as a rival by her. Seeing both of us stay silent, Victoria's hand hidden beneath her shirt clenched tight. She forced herself to stay calm, not letting me see the jealousy in her heart. At the same time, she consoled herself. He's ignoring me, probably just because of yesterday. There are other people here. Once we're in class, I'll coax him later. As for Sophie, HMPH. Who cares about her? Right after that, Victoria acted concerned, asking, Sophie, is your foot injured? Sophie, toward this third wheel, who'd suddenly appeared, felt no goodwill whatsoever. Hearing her ask with a fake concerned tone, she replied bluntly, Is there something wrong with your eyes? Victoria didn't get angry. On the contrary, she acted gentle and weak, her voice full of kindness. Ethan must be tired from supporting you all this way. Let me help you the rest of the way. Just saying that, she'd already proactively reached out, grabbing Sophie's other arm, so quickly that neither Sophie nor I could react. Sophie looked at her with contemptuous eyes. Victoria, seeing my hand, still supporting Sophie, acted as though thinking of me, saying, Ethan, let me help Sophie walk. If teachers see you, you'll have to explain all sorts of things. Such a hassle. I shot her a cold glance. In my eyes, those words weren't concern for me, but a type of threat. That's precisely why I disliked her even more. I didn't respond, just continued helping Sophie walk forward. Victoria, seeing I had no intention of letting go, took a risk. Ethan, could the rumors really be true that you and Sophie? A barely noticeable flash of awkwardness crossed my face. Involuntarily, I let go of Sophie's arm, then coughed lightly, cutting off Victoria's words. Though Victoria hadn't finished, just hearing the word, Sophie, was enough. Combined with those earlier words, it was enough to make my heart beat erratically. To hide my confusion, I had no choice but to let go of her. But in Victoria's eyes, that action carried a different meaning. She thought I had no interest in Sophie, that I was only helping because I saw her foot was injured, because I'd let go so quickly without hesitation. It made her believe even more in that interpretation, thinking I did it just to avoid misunderstandings. Actually, when asking that question, Victoria was also scared. Scared I'd actually admit to having feelings for Sophie. But fortunately, I didn't. Now her mood was extremely joyful. As for Sophie, feeling my hand let go of hers, her heart felt a flash of hurt. Her eyes turned cold, looking toward Victoria, revealing a dangerous smile. Thanks so much. What a helpful girl you are. No need to thank me. Helping Ethan is what I should do. Victoria didn't even bother looking at Sophie, her face maintaining a sweet smile, eyes fixed on me. She probably still wants me to keep supporting Sophie. Dream on, as long as I'm here. I absolutely won't let her have any chance to be intimate with him. He belongs only to me. At the stairwell entrance, Victoria saw Sophie suddenly stop. Her eyes carried some doubt, voice gently ringing out, Why did you suddenly stop walking? Along the way, her mood had been very good, especially since Sophie and I barely spoke to each other, making her even happier. Perhaps in Victoria's heart, Sophie had already lost her chance, so her hatred also lessened somewhat. Sophie didn't answer her, just used her beautiful peach blossom eyes to look straight at me. I immediately understood. I squatted down, saying coldly in one sentence, "Get on." Sophie, hearing this, didn't hesitate at all, pulling her hand from Victoria's grasp, then gently leaning onto my back. Victoria looked at her own empty hands, face full of displeasure. By the time she could react, I'd already carried Sophie up several flights. Right after that, she saw Sophie on my back suddenly turn around, making a mocking face at her. That action of Sophie's nearly drove Victoria insane. Why does Sophie get to be carried by him? And she even dares to provoke me? So infuriating. Victoria took a deep breath, constantly telling herself to stay calm. Stay calm, can't lose control. In front of him, I must maintain a gentle, sweet image. Ethan, carrying her must be tiring. Why don't you let me take over? She said in a concerned voice, while in her head she only hoped to quickly pull Sophie down. Absolutely can't let her enjoy this. I didn't respond to Victoria. Instead, Sophie spoke first. She placed her hand under her chin, pretending to worry. You're a whole head shorter than me. My feet would definitely drag on the ground. Victoria, hearing this, nearly lost it again. Is Sophie mocking me for being short? 5'3" isn't short among girls. Why would she say that? Victoria tried to regain composure, grinding out through her teeth. Don't worry. I won't let your feet touch the ground. But I don't want you to carry me. What's your point? I feel safe when he carries me. But if you carried me, I'd only feel unsafe, Sophie said with a serious expression. Victoria glared at her. Plus, the scent on Ethan is very pleasant. But your scent? It's enough to suffocate me. Sophie buried her nose in my shirt, taking a light breath, then turned toward Victoria to sniff, after which she covered her nose, waving her hand several times, frowning to show she couldn't stand it. Victoria, do you eat perfume instead of food? You sprayed so much. Hearing that, I almost couldn't hold back my laughter. Fortunately, I managed to suppress it. Didn't expect Sophie could be adorable like this too. Victoria's face turned so red she couldn't speak. Finally, she could only choke out. Sophie, you're shameless. You're only realizing that now? I can be even more shameless. Sophie rested her chin on my shoulder. Then, under Victoria's astonished gaze, tilted her head, placing half her face against my shoulder. Smiling brilliantly at her, I said nothing. But looking closely, you could see. The area behind my ears had turned faintly red. She. Finally, Victoria couldn't take it, completely losing her composure from Sophie's provocation, turning away angrily, watching her furious figure leave. The corner of Sophie's mouth curved up slightly. She muttered softly, "Little kid, want to compete with me?" Following Victoria's departing steps, Sophie felt the air around suddenly become much fresher. Then she straightened slightly, looking at my profile and asking softly, "Hey, Ethan, your standard for choosing a girlfriend. It's not girls like her, right?" I didn't think about it. Just shook my head. In that instant, Sophie's fair face flushed pink, because when I shook my head, I was only about 2 centimeters from her cheek. My lips had almost touched her skin. When my face tilted so close, she didn't avoid it at all. Isn't she embarrassed at all? Ha ha. Sophie tried to calm her racing heart, then asked again, "What about me?" I twitched my eyelids slightly, replying coldly, "Nonsense. In the end, do you like me or not? You talk too much. Should I put you down so you can talk freely? Always threatening me with that. HMPH, fine, I won't talk anymore." Sophie pouted, showing displeasure. Her smooth, porcelain-like face gently rested on my shoulder. 3 minutes later, I carried Sophie up to the 5th floor, immediately setting her down upon arrival. That decisive action made Sophie quite annoyed. She muttered complaints. "Couldn't you carry me just a bit longer?" I acted like I didn't hear, though in my deep black eyes flashed a hint of hesitation, as if I wanted to say something, but didn't know how to start. Right then, I was only thinking about how to give Sophie the tiramisu Mom had prepared. If I said I made it myself, that'd be weird. Saying Mom made it would be even worse. Thinking back and forth, I finally blurted out, "Have you eaten breakfast yet?" Of course Sophie had already eaten. After all, yesterday morning being so hungry she almost fainted had left a deep impression on her. But hearing me ask, she shook her head instead. "I have a serving of tiramisu. Couldn't finish it. Do you want some?" On my usually calm face flashed barely concealed tension. "I do. Of course I do." Sophie didn't need to think. Just nodded repeatedly. Hearing that, I breathed a sigh of relief. Then pulled from my bag the tiramisu Mom had carefully prepared and handed it to her. Wow! Sophie's clear eyes lit up brilliantly, as if she'd just discovered a rare treasure. She held the cake box, examining it carefully, while inwardly feeling quite smug. "If you want to give me breakfast, just say so directly. Why beat around the bush like this?" I couldn't really blame Sophie for thinking randomly. Because who wraps breakfast this beautifully? "Ethan, can I ask you something?" "Go ahead. If I don't eat breakfast every day, will there always be an extra serving for me in your bag?" Sophie tilted her head, looking at me expectantly. I immediately fell silent. Didn't expect she'd want me to bring her breakfast every day. Just thinking about it made my scalp tingle. If I told Mom about this today, she'd probably stop making tiramisu altogether. The more I thought, the more it made sense. I looked at her with an expression like, "Are you dreaming?" "Fine, then." Sophie sighed disappointedly. But the moment her eyes swept to the delicate cake box in her hands, she became cheerful again. "Even if he doesn't give me breakfast in the future, at least today he did, hee. Besides, even if he doesn't give it to me, I can give it to him instead. Who gives to whom doesn't matter. What matters is the feeling behind the gift." I helped Sophie walk into class 12 to 5, immediately receiving a series of astonished looks, mixed with curiosity and jealousy. Everyone showed different expressions. Before those gazes, I maintained my calm demeanor. No different from before entering the classroom. Even slightly colder, as if "stay away" were written on my forehead. Sophie, on the other hand, was different. Her face was filled with a bright smile, cheerfully welcoming the curious gazes of classmates. Even deliberately, leaning slightly closer to me. "They definitely have something going on. Don't you see Sophie's foot is injured? Ethan's just being kind, helping an injured classmate. What's wrong with that? Then how do you explain this? Both yesterday and today, it's always Ethan helping her to class? Could it be every time they coincidentally run into each other? Really can't say anything anymore. You guys are just jealous. Why are you trying to explain? Isn't it because you're scared Ethan has a girlfriend? And you've lost your chance? Your foot still hurts. Be careful in class. Don't walk around." I know. I helped Sophie sit down at her seat, then left class 12 to 5. Ever since being provoked by Sophie to the point of breaking her defenses, Victoria had kept watching the back door, waiting for me to appear. While calculating a small plan in her heart, Sophie twisted her ankle, and I not only helped her but even carried her. What if I also twisted my ankle? Victoria thought inwardly, the corner of her mouth unconsciously forming a smile. The very next second, she saw me enter through the back classroom door. Chapter 70. Even gentleness chooses its recipient. Victoria clenched her fist slightly when I sat down at my seat. She took a deep breath, then walked up to the first row, pretending to check English homework, desk by desk, moving down. Her target was me, so the checking was perfunctory. A quick glance, then moving to the next desk. The distance between us grew closer. Her breathing became more rapid. When checking the desk in front of mine, she deliberately kicked the desk leg lightly, planning to fall forward. The desk tilted sharply, and just as planned, she fell to the floor, crying out in pain. Both hands grabbed her left knee, face scrunched up, looking very pained. Since it was during homework check, quite a few classmates were watching this direction. Hearing the scream, nearly the entire class turned their attention over. "Whoa, why'd she fall like that? Is she okay? Did she get hurt? Quick, someone help her up." Victoria didn't respond to anyone, just with teary eyes, staring fixedly at me. I lowered my head, reading, acting like it had nothing to do with me, not bothering to glance at her once. Victoria's heart was in turmoil. Angry, disappointed, and finding it hard to believe. She'd clearly fallen for real. Yet I didn't bother looking over. Finally, she could only console herself. He must be too absorbed in reading. And didn't notice. She took a deep breath. Voice weak as she called to me. Ethan, can you help me to the nurse's office? Only then did I look up. Glancing at her, then standing. Seeing this, Victoria's eyes immediately brightened. As expected, he was just absorbed in reading. But still cares about me. But when she thought I'd help her up, she saw me say nothing. Turning and walking straight out the classroom door. Ethan, where are you going? She called hurriedly. Voice clearly panicked. I stopped, rarely answering her. I'm getting Dr. White. What? No, that's not what I meant. Victoria froze. Aren't you going to help me walk? Why call Dr. White? I said nothing more. Turning and leaving the classroom. Watching my retreating figure. Victoria trembled with anger. Punching the floor hard. Why is it that when Sophie twisted her ankle, I helped her, even carried her up the stairs. But when it's my turn, I go find a teacher instead. All the fantasies in her heart vanished completely. She didn't need Dr. White. She only wanted me. Just then, several female classmates ran over, crowding around asking questions. Victoria, are you okay? Pull up your pant leg. And take a look. Does it hurt a lot? Why aren't you saying anything? Victoria's eyes were empty, not answering anyone. Not until a very sweet-looking friend said, Victoria, hang in there. Ethan went to get the teacher. Only then did she freeze slightly. Especially those two words, teacher. They sounded so grating. Victoria held her knee with both hands. Taking a sharp breath, though it was a fake fall. She'd still actually fallen. And it really hurt. Class 12-5. Sophie's fair hands rested on the tiramisu box. Her slender fingers lightly tapping the lid. Like playing piano. Her pretty face glowed with joy. Right then, she felt the space behind her dip down. Lily wrapped her arms around her neck. From behind, hugging tightly. Sophie, what are you so happy about? I've been standing behind you. And you didn't even notice. Lily, you're hugging too tight. I can barely breathe. Sophie turned to look behind her, lightly patting her friend's arm. You always say random things. I'm hugging very gently. Are you starting to dislike me now? I'm deliberately not letting go. HMPH. Lily rested her head on Sophie's shoulder. Their faces nearly pressed together. I'm going to cling to you forever. Sophie squirmed a few times. Seeing she couldn't escape, she gave up, looking up at the ceiling, face full of helplessness. Sophie, are you really giving up? Sophie didn't bother responding to her smug friend. Just turned her face away. Just then, Lily seemed to discover something. Her eyes widened, saying in surprise, isn't this the same box from yesterday? No, wait. The color seems slightly different. She suddenly let go of Sophie's neck, placing her hands on her shoulders, gently applying force to turn Sophie around. She cried out in surprise, Sophie, is this tiramisu inside? Sophie raised her curved eyebrows slightly, nodding once with an Sophie, you're so quick. Just yesterday you said you'd buy me tiramisu. And today you already got it? Sigh. Yesterday you prioritized romance over friendship, making me stay in class a few extra minutes. Fine, I won't hold it against you. But next time you give me food, don't wrap it so meticulously. It's such a hassle when you'll just have to unwrap it to eat anyway. Lily's face bloomed with a radiant smile. Sophie bit her lip, showing a slightly awkward expression. Lily, you misunderstood. What should I say now? While thinking about how to explain to Lily that this tiramisu wasn't actually prepared for her, that hand had already reached for the box. Seeing this, without time to think, Sophie quickly hugged the cake box to her chest, saying to the owner of the hand that had just reached out, this isn't for you. Under Lily's bewildered gaze, she explained, this is breakfast Ethan gave me today. I can't give it to you, kiddo. Hearing that, Lily's face showed an expression like she'd seen a ghost. Eyes wide as saucers. He gave you breakfast again? Her voice rose several notches in shock. She couldn't be blamed for being so surprised. With my personality as cold as an iceberg. Being able to give Sophie a gift once was already earth-shattering. Didn't expect that yesterday, just after giving one. Today he'd continue. He really does have feelings for her. Before, Sophie had been used to the curious looks from others, but this time, her face rarely flushed with embarrassment. She lowered her head, answering softly. Being confirmed once more. Lily got so excited. She withdrew her hand from her shoulder. Then hurriedly sat back at her own seat. After digesting this shocking information, she said seriously, Sophie, I can tell you one thing for certain. What? Ethan definitely likes you. Really? Though asking, the smile on her face was brighter than the July sun. Trust me, 100% he likes you. Lily patted Sophie's arm twice, speaking with absolute certainty, but he's usually so cold to me. Does that mean he really likes me? Of course, Sophie. Hey, why are you suddenly taking out your phone? Didn't you say you wanted to eat tiramisu? I'm ordering 2 servings for you now, is that enough? If not, I'll order a few more. October 21st, Saturday. 4th period in the afternoon. Since it was math class, Sophie couldn't understand anything, so she propped her chin up, looking out the window. October in Riverside City. The plane tree leaves had turned yellow. A gentle breeze blew past, yellow leaves dancing everywhere, carrying the breath of autumn. The cool wind lightly brushed across her face, blowing a few strands of hair by her cheek, revealing her smooth, jade-white forehead. Afternoon sunlight slanted through the window, falling on her delicate face, making the scene extraordinarily poetic. Sophie stared blankly for a while, then gently tucked her hair behind her ear. Just then, she leaned over, lightly pushing Lily's romance novel aside. Seeing this, Lily panicked, quickly pushing the novel forward, hiding it under her math textbook. She looked around the classroom. The teacher was still enthusiastically lecturing, so Lily turned back, glaring at Sophie. Sophie, you scared me to death. I thought it was the teacher. Sophie pouted apologetically, then clasped her hands together, pleading. Help me with something. Keep watch for you again? Lily shot her a look. Sophie nodded vigorously. I give up. Lily covered her face with her hands. 2 seconds later, she sighed helplessly. Fine. Such a noble friendship, really. Okay. I'm tired of hearing that. Lily waved her hand, showing reluctant acceptance. Sophie laughed awkwardly, then pulled out her phone, thinking for a moment. After that, she sent a message. Riverside Nathan. Ethan, do you remember last time I told you? There's a really good pizza place near school? On the other side, in the art room. Mr. Lucas was holding the painting I'd just completed, enthusiastically praising it before the entire art class, saying things like the composition was balanced, the lines vivid and natural, the character proportions very accurate. As for me, I just wanted to draw quietly, but he always pulled me in front of the crowd. Suddenly, my phone in my pocket vibrated. I pulled it out to look, seeing Sophie's name on my normally cold face. Unconsciously appeared a very faint smile. The classmates in art class were all surprised by that change. Just moments ago, I'd been cold as ice. Yet in a flash, I'd softened. Had they seen wrong? Chapter 71. The choice, does she want pizza? Or does she want to see me? I asked myself inwardly, then lightly touched the screen. Ethan remembers. Moments of waiting always feel endless. Especially when the person you care about takes just a few seconds longer to reply. It feels like a century has passed. But when the response message appears, that feeling transforms into brilliant joy. Sophie looked up, glancing at the teacher, seeing he was still lecturing, then felt reassured enough to text back. Lily glared at her. Sophie, I'm keeping watch for you. Just text freely. Don't be so timid. Sophie nodded, then gently squeezed her arm around Lily's waist. Got it. Love you. Lily pretended to be disgusted, giggling softly. Riverside Nathan. So are you free after school? Or do you have something important to do? Through the screen, I could also sense the nervousness and anticipation in that message. The corner of my mouth curved up slightly. A faint smile passing through. The classmates in art class kept stealing glances at me. Seeing me actually smile left them all shocked. Ethan can smile? Who's he texting? Who could make him smile? Is it Sophie? Last time I thought it was an illusion. But this time they really saw it clearly. I texted back. Does going home count? Riverside Nathan. Of course not. I smiled faintly at the screen. Seems like I don't have anything important today. Sophie clenched her fists, excitedly raising her hand in silent celebration. She took a deep breath, then sent the invitation. Riverside Nathan. If you're not busy, let's go to that pizza place near school after class. Want to go? Winking cute emoji. I was about to agree immediately. But thinking back to a few days ago, her foot had already healed, yet she still pretended it hurt. Making me walk her from the bus stop to class every morning. And take her home in the afternoon. Sophie thought she was acting so well. But actually, I'd known for a long time. What gave her away most was that morning. Let's go get pizza. I'd initially planned to agree right away, but remembering a few days ago, her foot had clearly healed. Yet she still pretended it hadn't. Making me walk her from the bus stop to class every morning. And take her all the way home in the afternoon. Sophie thought she was hiding it so well. But I'd actually noticed long ago. The biggest slip-up was that morning. When the bus stopped at Sunshine District, Sophie saw me on the bus. And excitedly jumped up from the bench, running toward the bus. But then immediately realized something was wrong. And quickly changed her gait to the usual limp. In my head, a voice kept ringing out. Don't expose Sophie. That voice held me back. The next moment, I suddenly thought of something. A mischievous glint flashed in my eyes, containing a hint of teasing intent. I deleted the word, okay, I'd already typed, replacing it with, next time. Then hit send. Looking at the chat window. The top showed, other person is typing. Sophie felt both hopeful and anxious. Time passed bit by bit. But I still hadn't replied. The chat still showed, other person is typing. The anticipation in her peach blossom eyes was gradually overtaken by unease. Oh no, this is bad. In her mind, my delayed response was almost like an indirect rejection. He's probably thinking about what excuse to use to politely refuse. A few seconds later, the chat window finally showed a new message. 3 words. Next time. They printed themselves boldly in Sophie's mind. The last bit of hope in her eyes also flickered out, as excited as she'd been sending the message. That's how sad she felt being rejected. Like a tightly compressed spring. Sophie seemed to lose all vitality, slumping dejectedly onto her desk, just wanting to sleep for a very long time, so all her troubles would vanish with her dreams. Lily quickly noticed her state, gently pushing her shoulder. Sophie, weren't you just having a great conversation? Why are you so deflated now? Sophie didn't answer, as if she'd already fallen asleep. A few seconds later, she suddenly looked up, eyes dazed, voice weak as she told Lily. I invited him to get pizza. He turned me down. Can't believe Ethan's so clueless. Sophie, a total beauty like you takes the initiative to invite him. And he dares refuse? His head must have been kicked by a donkey. Sophie didn't respond, just muttered to herself. When we talked, he clearly said he wasn't busy today. Yet he still turned me down. Tell me, doesn't he want to be near me? Just mentioning that, her voice became choked with hurt. Hearing this, Lily could only feel speechless. Not going for pizza means he doesn't want to see her? What if he has other reasons? This girl's got classic, girl-in-love psychology. So Lily gently patted her shoulder, saying caringly, Sophie, don't overthink it. Why don't you try asking him why? If he really didn't want to be with you, why would he walk you to and from school every day? That makes sense. Sophie's eyes immediately brightened. Then she quickly pulled her phone from the desk drawer. I'll text him right now. I stared at our chat window. Nearly 2 minutes passing, without her texting back. I frowned slightly, thinking, did I tease her too much? My finger hovered over the keyboard, hesitating several times. Just as I was about to text first, she sent a message. That pizza place is really good though. Why won't you go? I smirked, eyebrows relaxing. then quickly typed a line and sent it. After sending her text, Sophie remained anxious. Afraid I'd coldly reply, "Don't want to go with you." Fortunately, it wasn't that. I texted, "Your foot's injured, walking's inconvenient." Her worried eyes immediately vanished, replaced by a sweet smile, while her inner thoughts also surfaced. So he's worried about me. That's why he won't go for pizza. But that pizza place is really good. I want to take him there to try it. Mainly, I want more private time with him. Sophie lightly stroked her chin, muttering to herself, "He's probably afraid too much walking will make my foot hurt more. But I really have to admit that I truly want to go there with him. Like a normal couple on a date." The sad part is he still thinks my foot's still injured, making it hard to walk around. But the truth isn't like that. Actually, I've been hiding from him that my foot healed long ago. I've just been pretending so he'd help me walk. If I keep pretending like this, I probably can't hide it much longer. Plus, constantly faking it might make him suspicious. Maybe I should just stop. She thought for a moment, then suddenly raised her hand, calling out loudly, "Teacher." Her action immediately drew the entire class's attention, making Lily jump. What's Sophie planning now? On the podium, the math teacher stopped writing, slowly turning around to look at her. Student Sophie, is something wrong? He'd thought she didn't understand something, and was about to explain, even inwardly praising her. This student finally knows to pay attention in class. Who knew Sophie would say, "Teacher, I need to use the restroom," nearly making him choke. He frowned, waving his hand helplessly. Go, 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 hurry up." Sophie smiled sweetly, saying, "Thank you, teacher," then left the classroom. Girls' restroom. She opened her phone camera, pointing it down at the floor in her white shoes, recording herself walking normally. Then sent, "Riverside Nathan, my foot's healed. Don't believe me? Just watch." Attached was an MP4 video. I saw the video she sent, just to prove her foot really had healed, and burst out laughing. Had to admit, that action was kind of adorable. I deliberately asked back, "That fast?" Sophie saw the text and panicked. She must be scared I'll discover she's been lying. Stay calm, stay calm. She cleared her throat twice, standing up straight, trying to seem natural, then texted, "I just recover quickly, I guess." I texted back, "I see." Sophie took a deep breath, sending the invitation again. This time he won't refuse, right? What if he still refuses? No way. If you dare refuse, I'll just follow you around forever. Riverside Nathan, my foot's healed. Walking's very convenient. Let's go get pizza after school. I was just putting away my art supplies when I tapped the screen twice, smirking slightly before hitting send. I texted, "Okay." She immediately replied, "Meet at the school gate after school," with a heart icon. Sophie put her phone in her pocket, walking out of the restroom radiantly. Inside, she felt indescribably joyful. Didn't expect he wouldn't question my foot. Even though at lunch I still helped her walk to the cafeteria. Yet this afternoon her foot's suddenly completely healed. It is a bit suspicious. Good thing I played dumb and didn't ask, or she would have been exposed. Pizza, here I come. Riverside Nathan, my foot's healed. Walking's very easy. Let's get pizza after school. I was putting away art supplies while typing a few words on screen, then smirking slightly before hitting send. Ethan. Okay. Riverside Nathan. Then meet at the school gate after school. Heart. Sophie tucked her phone in her pocket, face blooming with a radiant smile as she left the girls' restroom. Right now, her heart was still overflowing with joy. Didn't expect he wouldn't question my foot at all. Even though at lunch he still helped me walk to the cafeteria. Yet by afternoon the foot's suddenly healed. It really is quite illogical. Good thing I pretended to be oblivious and didn't press further, or she'd definitely have been exposed. Pizza. I'm coming for you. Just thinking about it made the corner of her mouth curve up, face overflowing with happiness. Mom's kept her promise to you today, bringing you to the pizza place to eat pizza. Do you remember what you promised Mom before we left? I remember. Tomorrow I'll definitely behave and stay in my room doing homework. not disturbing mom and the aunties playing mahjong downstairs. A boy around 8 or 9 years old said decisively. However, while speaking, his eyes remained glued to that piece of pizza, gaze sparkling brightly. And have you finished your homework? All done. Then sit nicely on the sofa watching TV. Don't disturb mom playing mahjong, or you'll mess up mom's luck, okay? This little head remembers so well. Mom's rewarding you with a piece of pizza first. A lightly made-up middle-aged woman sitting in the corner smiled with satisfaction, then cut a large piece of pizza and placed it on the boy's plate. Chapter 72. Ms. Reed. Class 12 to 5. Sophie had just entered and sat down at her seat when she bent over, pulling out a stack of books from the box under her desk, placing them on the desk to block the teacher's line of sight. After that, she pulled from the drawer a cute little mirror, propping it at an angle against the books. Then she leaned forward slightly, looking at her reflection in the mirror. She raised her fair hand, adjusting the strands of bangs that had gotten messy from rushing to the restroom earlier. Sophie kept adjusting in the mirror, finally satisfied enough to lower her hand. Just then, her eyes lit up, as if she just thought of something. Suddenly, she removed her hair tie, letting her silky black hair cascade like a waterfall over her shoulders. She looked at the hair tie in her hand, a faint smile forming. Ring, 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 ring. The dismissal bell rang. After such a long wait, her lifeless eyes suddenly blazed bright the moment the math teacher announced class was over. She was about to rush off to meet me at the school gate when her homeroom teacher suddenly walked into the classroom. Ms. Reed, homeroom teacher of class 12 to 5, around 40 years old, the strict type. In Sophie's heart, a bad feeling suddenly arose. The entire class, whether students who'd already put backpacks on their shoulders or those standing ready to leave, all froze. Everyone waited to see what the homeroom teacher would say. That alone showed just how much authority she commanded among the students. More importantly, everyone feared her, especially when she was angry. The next second, Ms. Reed said calmly, "It's nothing. Everyone can go home." The whole class breathed a collective sigh of relief. However, before Sophie could even smile, the homeroom teacher's next words made Sophie plummet into a deep abyss. "Sophie, Lily, you two come to my office for a moment." Sophie and Lily looked at each other in confusion. Neither of them had clearly broken any rules. Seeing the two still standing there like statues, the homeroom teacher raised her voice sternly. "Why are you spacing out? Follow me to the office, now." "Yes, ma'am." Sophie and Lily trudged after her with dejected faces. In the hallway, Sophie's expression was listless, looking utterly miserable. Right now, I should be meeting him at the school gate. Yet now, the homeroom teacher suddenly appears and specifically calls me to stay behind. So frustrating. The homeroom teacher had originally planned to scold both of them for chatting during math class. But turning back to look, seeing them dragging their feet, she frowned and asked, "Why are you two walking so far behind me? Am I that scary?" Sophie and Lily simultaneously nodded, then shook their heads, inwardly thinking, "Doesn't she know how terrifying she is?" But both still obediently quickened their pace, walking close beside the homeroom teacher. Ms. Reed seemed about to say something, but stopped herself. "I'll wait until we're at the office." Sophie was only thinking about why the homeroom teacher didn't call them earlier or later. But right at this moment, it was like destroying her entire plan. Sophie had completely forgotten one important thing: that I was still waiting for her at the school gate. If she was kept too long, would I think she was standing me up, and from now on refuse any invitations to hang out? Or worse, after this, I'd stop paying attention to her? Realizing this, Sophie's face flashed with panic. "No, I have to text him to explain. Can't let him misunderstand." "Ms. Reed, may I use the restroom for a moment?" Sophie asked nervously. Actually, she'd already decided whether Ms. Reed agreed or not. She was going anyway. The homeroom teacher stopped, staring at her, not saying a word, but her expression already said everything. "You sure have a lot of issues." Sophie's been holding it all period. Lily quickly jumped in to help. The homeroom teacher stayed silent for a few seconds. Then said helplessly, "Go, go." Sophie shot Lily a grateful look. Then quickly ran off. Once again entering the girls' restroom. She pulled out her phone. Looking at the last message in the chat. Meet at the school gate, and smiled bitterly. Why am I so unlucky today? Sophie heavily typed a few words on the keyboard. Sending them to me. Riverside Nathan. Sorry, I probably can't go for pizza with you today. With a crying emoji. In front of the school gate. I stood by the lawn. Watching the stream of students pouring out. My eyes searching for a familiar figure. When my phone in my pocket vibrated. I opened it to see Sophie's message. My eyebrows knitted slightly. Did something happen to her? Slightly puzzled, I sent back a question mark. What does Ethan's question mark mean? Is he disappointed in me? Sophie muttered sadly. No, I have to explain clearly. She took a deep breath, then typed several lines quickly. Riverside Nathan. Got called to the teacher's office. With a crying emoji. Riverside Nathan. I don't know how long I'll be kept. So, Ethan, I really didn't mean to leave you hanging. What I want most right now is to go to that pizza place with you. She sent several messages in succession, then placed her phone face down on her lap. Closing her eyes, resigned to whatever happened. Getting called by the homeroom teacher. Who knows what else she did? The corner of my mouth curved up slightly. Curiosity sparked in my eyes. I texted back. Ethan, I'm free tonight. I can wait for you. On the other end, the phone notification sounded. In that instant, Sophie almost didn't dare look. Afraid I'd send something that would break her heart. But finally, she took a deep breath. The corner of my mouth curved up slightly. Curiosity gleaming in my eyes. I typed another message. Ethan, I'm free tonight. I can wait for you. On the other side, the message notification sounded. Sophie, in that moment, almost didn't dare open her phone to look. Afraid I'd send her a message that would make her heart ache. She still held the phone that had been resting on her lap. So scared that, when her eyes swept across the screen, she even squeezed her eyes shut tight. She had to gather all her courage before slowly opening them. When she saw the line "I'm free tonight," her eyes immediately widened to their limit. And the following line "I can wait for you" left her mind blank for several seconds. He's not only not blaming me but even willing to wait for me. This unexpected happiness left Sophie feeling dazed. She wondered if she was dreaming. After a while, she finally calmed down, breaking into a radiant smile before texting me. Riverside Nathan. Ethan, you're so good to me. Plus an emoji of two little cats rubbing cheeks. Seeing that image, my heart involuntarily beat faster. I cleared my throat lightly, then changed the subject. Ethan, didn't you get called by a teacher? How are you still texting me? Riverside Nathan. I lied to her. Said I needed the restroom so I could sneak out and text you. Praise me. Sigh. I could just imagine her smug expression typing that line. The corner of my mouth couldn't help but curve up slightly. I replied. Hurry back to class. Staying in the restroom too long will make the teacher suspicious. Riverside Nathan. I know, but I can't bear to leave. I tucked my phone in my pocket, then turned back toward the school. On the other side, Sophie had just stepped into the teacher's office. When she heard the homeroom teacher's angry scolding voice. Lily, I know you're an arts student, but academic scores are also an important part of the exam. Don't you want to get into a good university? Lily replied quietly, I do. Ms. Reed said angrily, if you do, then why weren't you paying attention during math? What were you secretly doing with your head down? Lily wanted to argue that even if she listened, she still wouldn't understand. But thinking again, if she said that, she'd definitely get chewed out even worse. So she just stayed silent, pretending to obediently accept the blame. The homeroom teacher scolded a few more sentences, then noticed Sophie standing at the door, immediately switching targets. Sophie, finally, done with the restroom? Come here. Lily's face immediately showed relief, even shooting her a grateful look. The homeroom teacher asked, were you planning to get your eyes checked today? No, ma'am. Sophie weakly shook her head. Then why during class? You were taking out a mirror to look at yourself. Explain that to me. She momentarily didn't know how to answer. Could I really say I wanted to fix my hair to look pretty? For meeting him? The teacher continued, I know. Girls your age like to primp and preen, but right now the most important thing is studying. You must study, understand? Yes, I understand, Sophie hurriedly answered. Sophie, you're already very beautiful. You don't need more primping. Look around class. Is anyone prettier than you? They don't fuss over their appearance. Why do you waste time on it? I hope you'll devote your mind entirely to studying. Wait until you're in college, then you can beautify yourself however you want. I'd just reached the office when I heard scolding voices from inside. Looking through the glass window, I saw two tall girls standing with heads bowed, being reprimanded by a stern teacher. Even seeing them from behind, I immediately recognized Sophie, though I didn't know who stood beside her. She's being so obedient, I muttered to myself. In my impression, Sophie was always lively and bright. This was the first time seeing her stand still taking a scolding like this. Had to admit, it was kind of adorable. I stood watching a bit longer, seeing she'd probably be scolded for a while, so I turned to leave. 10 minutes later, I returned to the office. Unlike before when I just stood outside, this time I knocked and stepped inside. My knock made the homeroom teacher pause mid-sentence. Sophie and Lily both breathed sighs of relief, simultaneously turning toward the door to see who their lifesaver was. It was me. Sophie's face showed clear surprise. Wasn't he waiting for me at the school gate? Why would he appear here? Don't tell me he came to watch me get scolded? How embarrassing. She started overthinking. Lily glanced at Sophie, then at me, eyes showing some confusion. The homeroom teacher looked at me, the student she'd personally chosen as geography class representative, immediately asking, is something wrong? I walked over beside Sophie under her surprised yet delighted gaze, pulling a geography workbook from my bag. Ms. Reed, there's a problem here I don't understand. I wanted to ask you about it. After speaking, I glanced at Sophie and Lily, pretending to feel apologetic. Sorry, if you're busy, I can wait. Actually, the homeroom teacher was quite satisfied with me, so she didn't blame me for interrupting. Instead, she smiled and said, it's fine. Bring the problem over, let me see. I quickly flipped to find a difficult problem, then politely showed her. The homeroom teacher glanced at the question, discovering it was quite tricky, then turned to look at Sophie and Lily. She shook her head. You too, look at Ethan. Also an art student. But when encountering difficult problems, he still diligently asks teachers. As for you two, even during class you don't focus. What am I supposed to say now? Fine, you two can go. Next time during math class, don't let me catch you again. Yes, ma'am. Both answered obediently, with me standing beside them. Sophie felt the homeroom teacher no longer seemed so scary. She even wanted to stay a bit longer. Lily also looked visibly relieved, even finding me more pleasant to look at. But when she tugged Sophie's hand to leave, she discovered Sophie wouldn't budge. Turning her head, Lily felt speechless. If the teacher weren't here, she'd probably lean close to Sophie's ear and say loudly, this is an office. The teacher's still here. Can you stop crushing on him? Actually, the homeroom teacher had planned to let them go, to focus on explaining the geography problem to me. But after waiting over 10 seconds, seeing them still standing there, her voice became stern. Why aren't you two leaving? What are you standing there for? Hearing that, Lily panicked, pulling Sophie's hand harder. Sophie, stop spacing out. If we don't leave, we'll never escape. I saw Sophie's dazed expression, signaling her with my eyes. Go ahead first. She waved her hand, signaling, you two look at him. Also an art student. Yet when encountering problems he doesn't understand, he still diligently asks teachers after school. What about you two? Even during class you don't concentrate. What am I supposed to say to you? Fine, you two can go back now. Next time during math class, don't let me catch you again. Yes, ma'am. Both answered in unison, obediently, with me standing beside them. Sophie felt the homeroom teacher somehow wasn't as scary as before. She even wanted to stay a bit longer. Finally escaped the witches clutches. Lily's face showed obvious relief, even finding me much more pleasant to look at. But when she hooked her arm through Sophie's to leave the office, she discovered no matter how hard she pulled, Sophie wouldn't budge. She turned her head, her whole body freezing. If they weren't in an office, she'd probably lean close to Sophie's ear and say loudly, "This is an office. The teacher's still here. Can you stop staring at him?" The homeroom teacher had originally planned to let them leave, then peacefully explain the problem to me. But after waiting over 10 seconds, seeing them still standing in place, her voice became stern again. "Aren't you leaving yet? What are you standing here for?" Hearing this, Lily grew anxious, pulling Sophie's hand even harder. "Sophie, stop staring. If we don't leave, we'll never get out." I saw Sophie's bewildered expression, signaling her with my eyes. "Go first." She nodded slightly, then left the office with Lily. After receiving my eye signal, Sophie smiled and said to Ms. White, "Goodbye, teacher." Then shot me one deep glance, before turning and leaving the office. "Sophie, you just scared me to death." Stepping out of the office, Lily panted heavily. She'd genuinely feared Sophie would be so love-drunk. She'd insist on staying in the office with me and refuse to leave. Sophie didn't bother responding, just quietly looked through the window, eyes following inside, where I stood beside Ms. White, intently analyzing the problem. She sighed softly, saying quietly to Lily, "Lily, look, when Ethan's serious, he's so handsome." Lily looked at Sophie's face full of starry eyes, just wanting to scold me to vent her frustration, but thinking again that I'd just saved them from the witch's grasp. She swallowed her words. Sophie placed both hands on the window frame, watching me talking inside, the corner of her mouth maintaining an endless gentle smile. She said softly, "Even doing problems, he looks so handsome." Then suddenly turned to ask Lily, "Lily, today, Ethan helped us escape. How should I thank him?" Before Lily could answer, Sophie had already rapid-fired several suggestions. "Invite him to dinner? No. We're getting pizza together later anyway. Maybe see a movie? Would that be progressing too fast? What if he refuses? Or maybe an escape room?" Seeing Sophie's utterly confused expression, Lily rolled her eyes, blurting out, "Just offer your body then." Sophie's eyes widened. "Really? Would that work?" Leaving Lily speechless. "Lily, if I offered myself, would he accept?" "Sophie, girls need to maintain some restraint. Plus, you're such a beauty." "But it's Ethan we're talking about. I can't control myself." Hearing that, Lily could only throw up her hands. She sighed. "Fine, Sophie. I'm leaving first. Aren't you getting pizza with Ethan later? You want me to be the third wheel?" "Not necessarily. You could be my strategist," Sophie said with a smile. "I don't want to eat your guys' dog food. I'm heading out. Bye." About 5 minutes later, I stepped out of the office. Just reaching the door, Sophie rushed over, voice soft as she called out, "Ethan." Her gaze was so intense, it felt like it could burn half of me. I unconsciously stepped back, voice somewhat unnatural. "Sophie, can you be a bit more normal?" "Ethan, what are you saying?" "I'm perfectly normal." Sophie lightly bit her finger, tilting her head innocently. "Why are you backing away from me? If you keep avoiding me, I'll really hug you, just so you know." To let her calm down, I deliberately asked, "Is your foot really healed?" That intense gaze gradually faded, replaced by a hint of confusion. She hurriedly said, "Of course, don't believe me? Just watch." She walked several steps confidently, then turned back to stand before me, looking at me as if to say, "Do you believe me now?" Seeing her eyes had returned to normal, I secretly breathed a sigh of relief, but still wanted to tease her a bit. "But at lunch today, weren't you still?" Sophie panicked, not letting me finish, grabbing my sleeve, and rushing straight toward the exit, mouth muttering, "I'm so hungry. Let's just go get pizza." The corner of my mouth curved up slightly, letting her pull me by the sleeve. I'd already guessed these past few days her foot had probably healed completely, but didn't expect she could run around so energetically. Watching her walk so nimbly, I finally felt truly reassured. Though, somehow, inside, I felt a bit empty. In the schoolyard, a girl with long flowing hair grasped the hem of the boy's shirt beside her, both running together down the brick path under the afternoon sun. That scene was beautiful as a painting. Mom, over there. Someone looks like little Ethan. Chapter 74. The Pizza Place Fool. A boy around 8 or 9 years old, chewing pizza, spoke through a mouthful while pointing ahead. The middle-aged woman across from him froze upon hearing this, then quickly looked where he pointed. In her view was a male student in uniform, fair-skinned. No matter how picky she was, she had to admit, Sarah's son was truly handsome. Every time visiting their home, seeing Ethan, her heart would stir with a bit of envy, wondering what Sarah ate to give birth to such a good-looking child. I was someone she'd watched grow up. Just one glance, and she was certain the person sitting a few meters away was me. After confirming she wasn't mistaken, the lightly made-up woman immediately shifted her gaze to look at the person sitting across from me. Though only seeing a back view, with that graceful figure and black hair falling to the shoulders, anyone could tell it was a girl. She immediately got excited, pulling out her phone, choosing the best angle, then pressing the shutter. Before, she'd seen me at a supermarket with a girl, but hadn't gotten a photo. Without evidence, everyone said she was making it up. This time, she was determined not to miss the chance. Looking at the photos on her phone, she smiled smugly, then patted her son's head softly. Little Barry, today you've done a great service. Tomorrow when Auntie Sarah comes to our house, she'll definitely reward you. The boy looked a bit dazed. Just because I said that person looked like little Ethan, it's considered a great service? Though he didn't understand, he still asked excitedly, so do I get a remote control plane? Of course, you helped Auntie Sarah with something important. Great, little Barry cheered joyfully, then continued eating pizza happily. Feeling extremely content, he even hoped there'd be chances to do great service like this every day. To get lots more toys. Ethan, Ms. White is famously strict. Yet you dared go ask her questions. Sophie sipped fruit juice while asking curiously, is she strict? I shrugged. I don't think so. You really don't think she's scary? Sophie's eyes widened in surprise. She's very scary. I asked back. Really? Is she that scary? In my impression, the geography teacher was very approachable. Didn't understand how, from Sophie's mouth, she'd become so terrifying. Of course. Do you know what we secretly call her in class? Sophie leaned forward slightly, moving closer to me, voice so quiet as if afraid others would hear, deliberately creating a tense atmosphere. I stayed silent, waiting to see what she'd say next. The shop's lights reflected on her face, eyes bright and sparkling. My heart stirred slightly. In that moment, I felt time seemed to stop. All surrounding sounds vanished, leaving only the two of us facing each other across pale yellow light. I smiled faintly. This girl, truly impossible to look away from. My expression remained calm, as I silently watched her animated performance. Listen, demon head, her voice suddenly rose several notches, then lowered again as if afraid of being heard. Let me tell you something she did recently. She cleared her throat. Her eyes became serious. It was this past Tuesday. One unlucky girl was 1 minute late for morning reading, and just happened to run into Demon Head White on morning duty. Guess what happened? Demon Head White didn't say a word. Made her run 10 laps around the sports field. 10 laps. What girl could handle that? Result was after finishing, she cried right there on the spot. Yet Demon Head White still wasn't satisfied, saying she ran too slowly. Then punished her by making her copy the student handbook 5 times. So fierce and scary. At this point, Sophie shuddered, hearing her tell it so enthusiastically. Somehow I couldn't help but laugh. What are you laughing at? Sophie knit her curved eyebrows together. Somehow I found her strangely adorable. Based on what you said, Ms. White really is very strict. Exactly. And you can still laugh about it? We chatted while eating, not knowing that at a distant table, a middle-aged woman was secretly using her phone to photograph us. About 10 minutes later, a server brought over a black pepper beef pizza. placing it on the table. Then smiling. "Enjoy your meal, you two." After that, she turned and left. Sophie happily picked up a knife, cutting a large piece. Placing it on the plate before me. Then propping her chin up with a smile. "Try it." Her peach blossom eyes weren't just beautiful. They held a touch of enchantment. I only looked at her for a few seconds. Yet my heart was already racing. To hide the confusion in my heart, I picked up a fork to spear the pizza. Taking a small bite. "How is it? Good?" She leaned slightly toward me, eyes full of anticipation. I nodded lightly. Actually, with my heart racing, I couldn't taste anything. But just seeing her expectant gaze, I still nodded gently. Hearing that, Sophie's worries vanished. She smiled. "See? I didn't lie to you." Then rubbed her hands together. "I need to have a piece too." I watched her from across the table. At first, she'd planned to maintain a ladylike manner using a fork. But as if suddenly thinking of something, she picked up the pizza with her hands instead. When she lowered her head to eat, several strands of long hair fell down, getting in her face and bothering her. Since her hands were oily, she could only use her elbow to brush the hair aside. But within seconds, the hair fell back against her cheek. Seeing this, I said, "Sophie, why don't you tie your hair up before eating?" A mischievous glint flashed in her eyes. Then she put the pizza slice down on her plate, holding up her oily hands before me. "But my hands are all greasy now." In that moment of hesitation, she blinked, saying softly, "So you tie it for me?" My hand trembled slightly, eyes unconsciously pausing on her soft black hair. My heart beat faster. Tying her hair, wouldn't that be too intimate? In that moment, my heart seemed to miss a beat. I raised my hand, then lowered it again, hesitating before finally saying, "I've never tied anyone's hair before." After saying that, I felt relieved. But also a hint of regret crept in. "It's okay, just tie it however." She tilted her head, using her chin to point at the hair tie on her wrist, signaling me to use that to tie her hair. I hesitated for a moment, then pulled out several napkins and handed them to her. She asked in surprise, "Why are you giving me napkins?" "Wipe your hands. I really don't know how to tie hair. It's better if you do it yourself," I said with a very serious expression. Sophie froze, not expecting me to be this dense. Such a blockhead. She huffed softly, taking the napkin, staring at me while wiping her hands, then holding the hair tie in her mouth, using her hands to gather her hair and tie it up neatly. Being stared at so intently made me feel a bit awkward, so I tried to find something else to talk about. "What's wrong? Is the pizza not good? Why aren't you eating anymore?" "It's good. How could it not be good?" Sophie forced a strained smile, then picked up the remaining pizza slice from her plate, biting down hard, as if venting her frustration on the pizza. My hand trembled, dropping my fork on the floor. The atmosphere around the table became strange. Sophie said nothing more, just silently continued eating, occasionally glancing up at me with a resentful look. Under her gaze, I had to lower my head, quietly cutting the pizza into small pieces, eating bit by bit. Right then, I started feeling regretful. If only I'd tied her hair for her, how nice that would have been. But I really didn't know how. Even though she said tying it anyway was fine, I was still afraid if I tied it badly, she'd be unhappy. Actually, I didn't need to worry, because what she wanted wasn't beautifully tied hair, but that moment when I'd help tie her hair. Too bad I was someone who'd never been in love. At another table, the middle-aged woman finished her pizza, preparing to take her son home. But the boy refused to leave right away, instead turning toward us. "Little Barry, where are you going?" She quickly pulled him back. "Mom, I just want to say hi to little Ethan." "Little Ethan's busy. Don't bother him." "But Mom, didn't you teach me to greet people I know?" The woman froze, then explained, "This situation's different. Your little Ethan is on a date right now. Can't be disturbed. You wouldn't understand even if I explained. Let's just go home." "Why wouldn't I understand? A date, isn't that being with someone you like?" The woman looked stunned. "Who taught you to say that?" "My classmate told me, Mom." Little Barry answered innocently. What she truly cared about wasn't whether I tied her hair beautifully, but that moment when I'd help tie her hair. It's just there was no other way. Who told me to be someone who'd never been in love? Not far away, the middle-aged woman had just finished her pizza and was preparing to lead her son away. Turned out little Barry didn't plan to leave right away. Instead, turning to walk toward where I sat. Little Barry, what are you planning? The middle-aged woman quickly pulled her son back. Mom, I just want to say hi to little Ethan. Little Ethan's busy. Don't go disturb him. But Mom, didn't you say? When you see someone you know, you should greet them. The woman paused slightly, explaining, this situation's different. Your little Ethan is on a date right now. Can't be disturbed. Even explaining it, you wouldn't understand yet. Let's just go home. Why wouldn't I understand? A date. Isn't that being with someone you like? The woman's face flashed with surprise. Who told you that? My classmate told me, Mom. Little Barry answered innocently.